Hello everyone, this is LPL English. I'm here with NiP's mid laner Doinb. Let's have Doinb say hello to everyone first. 首先，请 Doinb 选手先跟大家打声招呼。
大家好，我是 NiP 中单 Doinb。
好，想问一下，首先是今天是年后你的第一场比赛，那也是对上你的老东家 FPX。想问一下，你对于今天的整体表现有什么样特别的感触吗？
其实今天大家的就是我的表现的话，其实我对个人的表现还是挺满意的，因为我觉得年后我个人的状态感觉比年前好很多，不管是对线还是打团战这方面，我觉得个人实力还是就回到以前的那种状态。
那有没有什么特别的感触？就是对上 FPX？
就主要对 FPX 主要是我的那种老队友都不在了嘛，对，换了一批人，换了好多人之后，现在剩下来的都是新的选手嘛。然后我只是希望方 boss 越来越好，因为我觉得毕竟我这个队伍我在这里拿过冠军，带了那么多年，对方 boss 的感情是非常好的。我希望方 boss 越来越好。
好，今天也是非常顺利的3-0赢下来。那你在队伍上算是一个比较有经验、比较老的选手，那跟其他的队员相处，你觉得你是做他们的老大吗？还是作为一个指挥？你对他们有什么样的评价？
首先，我觉得，电竞圈毕竟是就我这个年纪圈算是比较大的了，已经96年，但是我觉得不能有这种想法了，因为我觉得。每个选手都是因为他们都有天赋能打职业嘛，对吧？不能是因为我拿过冠军，或者说我打了这么多年，我能指挥他们，或者我要教他们怎么做，他们一定要听我的。我觉得不能这样子。我跟队友沟通的方式都是队友可以多给我一些建议、意见，然后我也会跟他们说，然后。我们到最后综合考虑哪个比较好，这方面可能是我可以站出来跟他们说，毕竟我也做这个决定的嘛。但是我觉得很多信息都是从队友那边听到的。
OK，那想问一下，针对今天的比赛，在第2局的时候，我们看到其实你们刚开始有一点点逆风，中间也是比较逆风的状态，但在有一个22分钟的时候，在上路的三角草丛那边，你帮你的队友等于说救了你的队友一个大招，然后逆转了比赛。想问一下，你还记不记得那一波是怎么操作的？
我记得，但是
跟我们讲
这种东西怎么说呢？其实是，也不是说我要怎么做，我看到对面人过来，想要发在做，我说我下步要怎么做，这感觉是，我觉得我相信所有选手都是这样子的，就当时觉得要跑了，也就那瞬间的，就0.1秒的时间，要判断要怎么做，然后我手已经在按，可能真的有些人夸张的说你的手比你的脑子快，对吧？有时候就是这样子，确实是这样感觉。
OK， 所以是你觉得就是那一瞬间？
对，那瞬间我的手确实。比脑子快，脑子都还没转过来，还没想到这一步的时候，我手已经在按了。
所以算老选手一个及时反应
也算吧，反正毕竟经验比较丰富，对啊，打了那么多年了。
也想问一下，你第2局的睿智这个选角，你算是在 LPL 里面算是一个比较一个特殊的一个选角嘛？那想问一下你自己对这个睿智啊，或是一些像是其实海外观众对你比较记得的是你的盲僧、中路盲僧，想问一下这种比较特殊的角色选择，你自己是怎么看待你自己这个选角池、这个英雄池，以及你觉得在这个版本里面，你们可能拿出更多的一些不一样的英雄？
首先英雄这方面的话，其实为什么呢？因为我觉得睿智跟瞎子，包括说别的很多英雄，
对，
都是我排位会先试一下的。因为我毕竟我这个人排位打的比较多，基本1年365天24小时都在打排位，除了睡觉。然后我是看了遇到一个算是绝活和指玩这个英雄的人，排到发现感觉这个英雄还不错，我也会去试，或者说我跟他打完之后发现，感觉我下边也试一下，然后试完效果好的话，训练赛也会尝试，训练赛效果好比赛才会用的。都是我觉得就只能这么说，努力确实有回报。你一直练的话，知道这个英雄是好不好用。
你有没有你觉得还有哪些打野英雄有可能出现在中单这个位置上？
太多了，而且我的英雄联盟好玩的点在就是你这个英雄也不是说你选出来一定要中路或者打野或者上路，其实你想走哪条路就走哪条路。我觉得这个是一个英雄联盟到现在为什么这么火，然后可以就是每年都是有，虽然其实英雄每年新英雄出的没那么多嘛，但是通过这版本的更新啊，各种所以很多英雄是可以走另一条线，我觉得这个是比较好玩的、有趣的一个点。
好的，想问你可不可以跟我分享一则就是最近在队伍当中的一个小趣事，你跟队员啊，或是一些可以跟我们分享？
太多了。
那你想一个跟我们？
比如说我们有一个就是我刚刚加入 NiP 的时候呢，当时我们队内有一些是沟通的问题，就是不是说那个，因为我们人坐在一起嘛，在一个基地里面，但是因为我们戴了耳机，我们队友是 Live 是听不到队友说的话，他有时候跟队友跟他说了或什么的，队友跟他说他是听不到。他是真的听不到，所以我们当时还跟队友说，我们要不要开个那个 YY 那个聊天软件，我们在那个，然后因为队友说的话有时候听不到，现在他刚采访的时候他说了， 现在感觉是至少终于能听到队友说的话了，那说明这个问题终于解决了。
可以，越来越好了。
对，就主要是当时可能因为大家第一次磨合嘛，然后可能确实有时候队友的声音也分不清，我也是有这个问题先，确实正常。
OK， 好的，想问一下，就是其实我们也知道你做了挺久的主播，那在这么长的主播生涯当中，你觉得现在回来做选手，你觉得这两个中间的心态上面有没有什么样的不一样？以及你这么久的主播，可是你回来依然是顶尖的选手，你怎么在这么长期的一个算是休赛的状态，回到赛场上依然是如此的高，实力非常的这么的高呢？
首先，我觉得我个人的状态肯定是跟巅峰比的话是没法比的，毕竟我现在快30了嘛，年纪大了，我是96年的，然后跟那种以前那种24、23、25年的那个个人兑现状态肯定是没法比。但是我觉得我因为这几年，虽然我可能这2年吧休息了2年的这段时间，虽然我没有打比赛，但是我是每天都在高强度训练打排位的，然后通过这排位这个方式，我是跟那些职业选手一起对线啊，练那些各种东西的。然后版本的那个理解也是，我没有我能追上这个版本的原因，我觉得现在我每天都在不停的排位训练，所以我觉得这个比较重要。因为很多选手，我觉得我看过别的选手的采访，什么各种采访什么的，他们觉得是确实排位对现在的现役选手帮助没有那么大，但是我觉得每个人的看法都不一样。反正我觉得这个是非常重要的一个点，
就是非常有自制力，怎么说？
因为你跟选手打跟一直排位训练跟选手打的话，我觉得你排位赢过这个人，你比赛遇到这个人的时候，你是很有信心的，很有自信的。对啊，这方面确实会有很多帮助的。如果你排位没有赢过这个人的话，你或者没遇到过这个人，会很慌，对啊，对。
好的，那你这次回归有没有什么特别一定要完成的目标？
一定要完成的目标的话，就是能多赢一场就多赢一场吧。因为我觉得这个年龄确实是，虽然我觉得这个游戏已经是不看年龄了，不像以前那样子，你说你一定要到了什么年龄就是打不了了或者怎么样。但是毕竟我现在孩子也3岁了，明年就已经2岁，明年3岁了。我其实这段时间也是一直不打职业的时候，每天都在陪小孩。然后这次回来之前也是一直在想这个问题。然后我后年就是后面明年也好，后年也好，也不知道我会不会继续留在赛场打比赛。但是我觉得反正我打比赛是一个很开心的事情，而且我觉得这个是一个比较重要的一个点。很多人确实做的事情，他们现在打工作，我们也是打工嘛，对吧？打工人。我觉得很多人不是你想做的事，但是为了生活做的。但是我觉得我一个非常幸运的人。因为我是非常喜欢打游戏的一个人，喜欢电竞，我热爱电竞这个也喜欢这个游戏，我能靠这个吃饭，还能靠这个能跟一起粉丝们接触，聊聊天，我觉得这个是一个非常开心的事情，所以我觉得能多打一场，能多赢一场就赢一场。
这也是你这么想要回来打职业的原因。
对，是的。
OK， 好的。那想问一下，你有没有对于下一场你将对上的是 RNG， 有没有什么感受？就是你觉得下一场比赛会怎么走？
下场比赛的话，因为我觉得我看过 RNG 的比赛，他们打 IG 也好，打 FunPlus 也好，我觉得我是看过他们的比赛的。他们确实，我觉得目前状态是比较好，但是年前跟年后我觉得是不一样的，所以我觉得还是得看跟他们打了之后才知道他们到底现在是目前什么情况、什么状态。我觉得我们现在是就不要膨胀，就低调，我们就打好每一场比赛，专注每一场比赛就行。
好，有没有话想要对海外的观众说？
我有话想对海外粉丝们说的，其实是我知道很多海外的粉丝一直就是支持我，而只看我们的比赛的。然后也看过很多那种网上的切片什么都看过的，然后也看了评论，其实非常感谢，还有这么多粉丝，我离开赛场有2年了，还有这么多粉丝一直支持我，一直等我回来，然后回来之后有这么多粉丝们看我们的比赛，也非常感谢。然后希望今年世界赛还能在世界赛舞台上能见到你们，然后继续支持我们 NiP 这个战队。
好的，谢谢。Hello everyone, this is LPL English. I'm here with NiP's mid laner Doinbi. Let's have Doinbi say hello to everyone first.
Hello everybody and welcome to back to our coverage of the LPL English on screwed that up.
all right, here we go. Wait,
big shout out
transition again. We do
big
the
shout out to
again.
Patty. Big shout out to Patty here who conducted that interview with Doinbi. If you did not catch the entire interview, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. There'll be a link in the Twitch chat. But yes, we are watching Doinbi and Ninjas in Pajamas today as we start our last round of games here in the Group D of the LPL Split 1 group stage. One more matchup for all 4 of these teams. We're going to start off with NiP versus RNG to see which 2 teams will be in the playoffs in the knockout bracket. My name is Graves, joined alongside Alk Battery. We're going to take a look at the group standings right now here, Alk. There it is, down in Group D. Ninjas in Pajamas, led by Doinby. They have the opportunity to clinch their top spot in the group with a win today.
I think it is so surprising with how far in the schedule we are that we still have not locked a single team here in Group D. As you can see, just across the board, I know yesterday we had one of the most fun games of all time, Ultra Prime versus OMG, but it's crazy to me, especially with what happened at the very beginning with the NiP and IG series, and now that we're so close towards the end of the split, at least for the group stage, I'm looking forward to this match because it does still have lots of implications and kind of leaves us with our last game of the series of this group still being up and open for anybody to grab a second spot.
Yeah, we'll get more into the implications of qualifying into the playoff bracket within Group D in a little bit, or as we go throughout the show. But long story short, if NiP win the series today, they lock themselves in the upper bracket. If they win at least one game in this series, they lock themselves a spot in the top 2 at the very least, and we'll have to wait and see what Invictus Gaming does against FunPlus Phoenix at the end of our group stage later this week. And for RNG, it's a must-win to have any sort of opportunity. You can take a look at the schedule here right now. We're basically going to get 2 win-and-you're-in series at the very end of things with IG versus FPX, followed by LGD versus TS, specifically for Invictus Gaming and Top Esports. And then tomorrow, we have Top Thunder Talk versus BLG for a spot in that upper bracket. Obviously, the difference between being first place and second place in these groups, Alk, is very, very big. And so you know that both of those teams tomorrow are also going to be coming to play.
For anybody who doesn't know, our playoff system is a top 8, so it's top 2 of every group and double elimination. Like you said, such an important group, especially when you look across the board as to who your second seeds are. I know not only today, but tomorrow, the TT versus BLG series. Imagine, now this is a frank world, right? Like, you're going against a TT in second seed, you're okay, well, maybe there's a TS as well, and you only have 1 life in playoffs. I think that is a huge kind of boon if you're able to get that first seed.
Absolutely. So it's almost like a playoff series tomorrow. Even though neither team gets eliminated, it determines which team will be in the upper bracket versus starting in the lower bracket, who gets that extra life. So lots of implications over the next 4 days, especially right here. And we could get started with talking about this series, a best of 5 between NiP and RNG. Let's start off with Ninjas in Pajamas. We saw the interview with Doinby and Patty just before we got on the air. You can take a look at their full starting 5. Shanji, Aki, Doinby, Leave, and PP God. A lot of shades of that OMG core from a couple of years ago, and some really strong carry players as well.
I love that the addition of someone like Doinby has kind of shifted this team's perception, especially among fans of the LPL, and I really do believe with the level of gameplay that they've shown us here so far, barring some upsets in playoffs, I want to see a little bit more of this team, but I feel really strongly that this is one of our top 4 teams here in the LPL, and I want to see more of what these guys have as we get further on in the season.
Yeah, taking that win over Invictus Gaming, I think really changed the narrative of, okay, this is actually going to be a top contender here in the LPL. I think going into the split, before we knew that Doinby was joining this team, it was more of a free-for-all of who was going to get that second seed. Now, NiP has a chance to lock up seed number 1 with a win here today. But they're going to have to get past Royal, Never Give Up. They're currently sitting at 1-1 in the group. Their roster is Jiaozu, Milky Way, Tangyuan, Jiachi, and a new addition, Niket, joining the team and playing his first games of 2025 here today.
Yay! Niket waiting room for everybody who's known. One of the worst kept secrets for RNG, but yeah, Niket was a really exciting prospect. I was sad to see him go back underneath the TES Challenger system over in the LDL. I thought that his last year in LPL was actually really good, and maybe in a couple of years' time, I think he was a top-level support prospect. So excited to see him, especially with an RNG that is slowly on the uptick. I know we've been kind of putting this as an NiP favored series, but I think with his addition and with the level of play that we're getting from someone like Tangyuan and Milky Way, anything's really possible here in this group.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the big thing here is that having a player like Milky Way on this team really can make some differences here. And we saw the rise of a player like Tangyuan, as you mentioned, in that series against FPX. But we got 2 players who are more synonymous with another organization in this group, actually, that being FunPlus Phoenix. Milky Way, of course, spending last season there, and Doinby winning a world championship there. And right now, FPX sitting at 0-2. These guys both took them down and are both the lead stars and big playmakers for their respective teams.
I felt like these were just bad divorces, you know? Like Doinby, when he left, went over to LNG, and they barely weren't able to make it to Worlds after bombing out on FPX in Worlds 2021. And then Milky Way, despite a really strong spring, summer just didn't really feel the same. There were some issues going on in the top lane with Shadalhu, so for FPX, it feels like nobody really won in that trade. And so coming to see them now after it's been a couple years, especially for someone like Doinby, it kind of is, we're in a weird spot. Life after FPX has not been all sunshine and rainbows for these guys.
Yeah, and you know, for a player like Doinby, taking those 2 years off and now making his way back here into the competitive space, still doing his same old style of roaming around. You saw the kill participation there, very high for both of these players. They're going to be active on the map from start to finish in this series. But before we get to the start of the game and the 1v1 for side select, let's talk about our participants in this side select 1v1, and that's going to be actually the 80 carries. You know, normally all we've been seeing the solo laners get their opportunities to play in this early skirmish, but this time it's going to be the ADCs who both have actually had very solid starts.
Yeah, NiP, I think, has been very quietly a really great addition to the roster. And for Jiachi, from I think the Demacia Cup, he showed a lot of strong showings, and despite them not really being able to get out of their group, I think these are two 80 carries, while in different parts of their career, are really exciting to watch, and hopefully we get a series that is dictated a little bit more around our bottom lanes, as I think so far this season has shown that solo lanes are a bit broken coming in.
Yeah, I feel like 80 carries overall have been a little bit more on the playing, the supportive side. I don't know. I always go onto Twitter and I see different 80 carry players complaining about how their role is super weak. I know that's just generally what they do, but also it seems to be maybe a little bit more important. Yeah, maybe I'm looking at your tweets sometimes.
My role
as well.
sucks, dog. It's fine. It's fine. I will just play Varus every game. That's just how it goes.
Hey, Jachi had a pretty good Varus game, as we're going to take a look at some clips between these two bot laners here as well. Yeah, Leave being a player that I thought had a really good 2024, even though it was not on a very good team on EDG specifically in the summer split, and he's really coming to play this year on a team that has a little bit more expectations under their belt.
Yeah, when this roster originally was having Nenny as the mid laner, there were some ideas that, hey, Leave is probably going to have to do a large part of the heavy lifting, especially with, I think, the year that Shanji and Aki had in 2024. But now, alongside Doinby, it feels like this team properly has strong firepower in mid, especially with the creativity of a player like Doinby. And this fight is just one of the most beautiful Ezreal games. Unfortunately, came at the hands of having to watch Rookie play one of the worst Azir games he's had, but I'll take it if I get to see someone glide like this.
Yeah, this was, I think, his best game of the season so far. Ended with 8 or 9 or like 10 kills maybe without any deaths. So here's the question though here, Alk. In this 1v1 format with the 80 carry players, do you expect them to kind of play marksman, or are they going to be whipping out something else, like showing like I feel like mostly bruisers or mages have been what people have been playing here in this one.
Yeah, we've seen some, Varus versus Corki matchups. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what our marksman goes for. Also, Jachi himself has been someone that has moved towards some uncharacteristic or some unpopular 80 carries, especially like we see here, the Tristana champion that isn't quite super popular right now after a lot of nerfs from last year, but I'm going to expect them to stay on a marksman. I think that's careful. I think it's very easy to say, and what I'll be looking for is maybe if we get some intervention from some solo laners chirping in.
Yeah, to give some little advice. These guys, they don't normally, well, maybe with lane swaps they've been doing it more often, but they normally have a little friend by them. They have their support player helping them out, starting the engages. This time, maybe the 80 carries are going to have a little bit more initiative. Although, I feel like recently, the 1v1s, they've been waiting until that fire closes in, I think, a little bit too often for my liking. I'd like to see these players, just immediately jump in, but that doesn't seem to be their style.
I don't know about you, man, but seeing the cannon minions give me 130 gold, I could care less about hitting another champion. I'm like, this minion wave is juiced. Give me the gold. I want to get my items. We've seen some also creative strategies, right? Like, I think the most creative was the one that we saw a couple of days ago between Breathe and Ala, the Weibo versus JDG series. We had a Nivea versus Lee Sin, He's just
Yeah.
waiting the whole time and then kicks him out. I was like, oh, all right, well, I guess that's what we're doing.
We saw a similar one with an Alistar. With this, I think the
That
same
one did not
concept,
go as
but
well.
it didn't work. Yeah, I think you need to have a little bit more damage to do that. But
Maybe.
I like the Anivia tech as well. You know, it makes sense. Like you either walk into the storm or you stay in the small circle where the storm is too. So didn't work out unfortunately. But man, I know that NiP is the favorite for this series. They beat Invictus Gaming. They've been looking very, very solid with Doinby, but something about this RNG team, man. I feel like they've got a little bit of juice, and if they are able to play to the best of their ability, they can make this group all of a sudden very, very interesting.
I think the one thing that I will be looking for is how does Niket's addition to this RNG roster look, because with their last game of the season being now, depending on some results, obviously, whether or not they make it to playoffs, I feel like it fits, right? Like, hey, whether or not we make playoffs, we're going to be running with Niket, but they could have done this last series as well. But instead, they decided to let Lola play, maybe in an option of like, we actually haven't got enough time to practice, so we'll be kind of putting him in and waiting until after the New Year break. But I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to what Niket can add. I think, again, I was so excited about this player coming into this year, and not to finally see him on an LPL roster is great, but maybe this is, like we were saying for RNG, this is a split 2 team, right? This is not a team that we are expecting to make very big waves or even very deep runs here in split 1 with how cutthroat the format is.
Yeah, especially with the rise of a team here like NiP, and also the addition of Invictus Gaming with a ton of world champions and things like that. They made quick work of RNG when they played before we headed on to our break. So overall, gonna be exciting to see if they can do anything. But we are expecting Ninjas in Pajamas to be the favorite here. Got a lot of experienced players who have experience playing together specifically, and then some really solid carry players that we highlighted in Doinby and Leave. I think we're getting closer and closer to the start of our 1v1. The walkouts are here. We get our awesome intros, as I believe we're back in our Shanghai studio out here in China, and let's see the teams walk out.
So I was doing some research, mostly just scrolling through some feeds of data. What do you think right now? What is your perception as a fan of blue side versus red side right now?
Right now, it's blue side is better, because I feel like every time people have the option to choose a side, they always go to blue.
Yeah. So I will say, I think part of this is influenced by the fact that when you lose, typically teams are going to be picking blue side, and so the team that ends up winning the series typically has to do it from red side.
Right.
Red side has an almost 60% win rate here in the LP.
Okay. I think your theory is right, though, on the fact that after you lose game 1, and we've had a good amount of 3-0s, that the losing team or the team that's worse, especially in like a group stage format like this, probably do go to blue side. But there is the other side of the argument, which is that maybe red side's a little strong. You get some golden accents on the jerseys.
Clean. And it's I think this is such a new look for RNG, not only just player-wise, but I think they've been always stuck to their normal color pattern of black with gold trim and gold, accents. This looks good. This is a beautiful look for the guys, and maybe something that they need, maybe, change up some of the environment. We got a new support. We got new threads. It's looking good.
You see Niket looking to play his first LPL series of the 2025 season. He's going to have to wait a little bit as we have our 1v1 4-side select before we get underway.
Oh, let's go. Okay. I'm looking at 1v1s. I mean, Renekton's been permabanned. Rumble's been permabanned. We're getting Corki as well. I don't think we're seeing more Corki games, man. Like this, it took a little bit for everybody to realize this, but they were like, okay, we're done playing the Yordle.
I think also, like the Corki, I think wasn't it more popular when we were actually on Summoner's Rift and there was no fire closing in? I feel like that was.
We had a couple of Corki, like we had the Corki Draven matchup, I think, between Linfeng and Scout. That was on the ARAM map. It's really easy to get first item, especially on this map. We've just been seeing like almost every single 1v1 when we get to 7 minutes because of the minion changes. Hey, there you go. You get one first item, and that's it. maybe get 1.5 if you've been getting, if you got a solo kill or you're able to sneak an extra wave before the Ring of Fire.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens in this 1v1. What I do know is that I feel like Doinby is going to be like just right over Leave's monitor and just like narrating everything. I feel like that's kind of his vibe. I don't know about you.
Maybe. I just want to see. I want to see what creative champions we get. Like we talked about it earlier, but AD carry players, not myself. I tend to. Maybe I'm just built different. They all like to play very similar champions. They're like, I'm just gonna play marksman. If I go top lane, I'm probably playing a ranged champion. If it's not Gnar.
What would be your 1v1? What would be your 1v1 champ here on this map?
I really like Syndra. I think I'm a really strong Syndra. Syndra's always been very fun, and you have the all-in potential of a level 6. I think strong first item spike as well. Can push someone out of the 1v1. If you're up against a tank, however, you're a bit sad. So we're here for side select. Again, Mel disabled. Gonna be fun to see what that champion looks like in pro play in the LPL. But until then,
maybe one day.
I don't think we're getting any melee bruisers, but I'm seeing Cassante left up. I'm gonna double check. Have we gotten a Cassante? No, we haven't.
Whoa!
No one's been.
That's an insta-lock Kled here for Leaf. So it looks like they want to play some different champions. They're not. They don't want to play the marksman this time around.
Jachi, don't do this. Don't do this. Do not play Renekton into this map. Okay, well.
Okay, well.
We can go ahead and we don't have to watch some of everyone, guys.
we think Leaf's a little
this solo lane
here.
is miserable to play as Renekton.
I do like the Kled shout out here, just because of the fact that the remount, I think, in a 1v1 situation is very, very strong. And as our producer Kelsey is letting us know, or reminding us, I should say, Doinby used to play a little bit of Kled in the mid lane when he was on like Rogue Warriors back in the day. So you can already see the players kind of hovering over him. I'm sure Doinby's going to be giving him a lot of advice here.
I have a conspiracy theory time, because he's sitting next to Doinby. I think this guy is micromanaging his teammates.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Shanji versus Rookie, he played Kled. Doinby versus Sheer, he played Kled. We're playing Kled again. Now, coming up in the next 1v1s, if we see Aki and we see PP God and they both play Kled, I think this is a NiP conspiracy to get Kled boosted up in the rankings.
Or maybe they just think it's really OP, and then they all practice it.
He is a very strong duelist, but I think it is too much of a coincidence that NiP and Doinby are together and we're getting Kled games.
Yeah, no, he definitely has the influence. This is definitely this is his brainchild, and the rest of his teammates are executing on it. And,
he's like the Puppet Master meme, right? Where
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
Like, ooh, guys, you so want to play Kled. I can give you all the 1v1 tips.
Or he's forcing everyone to play Kled. So we get a little bit of trading to start things off. The remount is going to be the important thing here. If Jachi can get that, can remove that, or get him off of the Scarl as soon as possible, that would probably force an early reset or things like that. So I think that would probably be his goal early on here.
For all my Kled enthusiasts or anybody who is looking to learn some Kled or play against Kled, for Jachi, like you were saying, getting the remount is important, but it's after he's gotten his first remount that is, I think, going to be the most important window. There's a moment in between when, after he gets back onto Kled after being dismounted, where he can't actually gain any courage. And it's in that window that you can actually force the Kled to be in a pretty awkward position and potentially even go for the all-in. Renekton's going to have a lot more bursty stats, or I guess tankier stats, I should say. Bruiser, you know, he has a bunch of HP, especially at level 6. So Leaf's got to be very careful and kind of weave in those empowered autos from his W.
Yeah, so there's that first reset here. Should be no problem for Leaf to get right back onto the Scarl, which is the strength here of this champion. You are able to trade kind of evenly in HP or even take slight losses, and then immediately once you get remounted, as long as you don't die beforehand, you're all of a sudden right back in an HP advantage. So looks like Jachi waving the white flag. He's gonna stay calm at least for a little bit as Leaf gets right back on top, grabs that health relic, and just keep poking away.
Dude, Jachi's like, how do I play, man? He literally just remounted and got plus 600 HP. What the hell is this? This champion's OP.
That's attack. Hey, maybe Doinby's got something cooking here. I'm most surprised that Leave, like the AD carry player, has enough practice to feel comfortable on a champion like Kled. I mean, Renekton, I feel like is, you know, it's the blind pick that if you get auto-filled, like you lock it in, like it's not too hard. This is a champion that has a lot of like game knowledge stuff at the very least. Maybe not mechanics, but just in terms of understanding the nuances of this pick.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Kled is a
high
really
skill
fun
ceiling.
duelist, especially I think because of the violent tendencies W, right? Like every 10 to 11 seconds, you can basically just all in someone like a maniac, and then you remount, and your ranged form is also pretty strong with the shotgun. So I would agree. I know you're a top laner, and I'm like a recovering top lane enthusiast. So
Yeah, I hate this. I hate playing against Kled. Not fun.
Well, okay, you're like a Scion player, so you
Yeah.
see this guy, you're like,
As a tank
cool,
player.
this guy's just gonna run me around the map, and I'm gonna get 1v1'd, and
And he always has way more HP than me, even when I'm playing tanks. So it just
True.
somehow look at the base HP right now. It's just 2 Doran's blades, but because of Skarl, he's got so much. It looks like just by looking at the health bars, he looks like he has way more health than Jachi does.
technically, I think he has like 1,300 because
Yeah,
it's
gross.
600 to 700 on base Kled, and then Skarl has another 700. But yeah, he definitely looks like he has a lot bigger of a health bar than I think he
Ooh.
actually does. Jachi does get a nice trade there, and
Kind of waste the barrier though. It's not good.
yeah, he still has the ignite, which is something I'll be looking towards.
Nobody's been taking much in terms of the turret damage here. Leave hasn't like gone and pushed for that. Will say neither side has gone back to base and picked up items. They're both probably sitting on a decent chunk of gold right now.
Yeah.
We're not at the point in the game just yet where the fire will close in, but you know, always something to consider that. Yeah, maybe you do want to go for a reset.
Small advantage here for Leave. He picks up the HP pack, and Jachi's like, oh, okay, I don't get access to this. This is the fun part. If you ever use your E on Renekton, you just do the all-in, and it's right back out. You are not allowed to play after that point. If
Yep.
you use your double flip, it is just GG. You are looking to run. Leave can get back to this area a lot quicker thanks to using his ult, but I think he wants to have the knock-up that comes as part of it for the 1v1, so probably just going to be saving it. We're going to see what these first items are. I hope it's Asterix. It's looking like a Black Cleaver for Jachi.
Well, yeah, it seems I feel like okay, maybe I'm no. Starix built out of Tunneler now, so that's not it. It's
Yeah.
definitely Cleaver. Leave
It's double
is
Black
going
Cleaver,
Cleaver.
yay.
Okay, so they're both gonna be doing big like a lot of true damage, I guess, as we get to these extended fights. I will say that Leave does have the CS advantage for now. I don't think that will end up being you know a topic of concern. We're gonna get to the fight eventually, but it is.
We've gotten
another,
real close to hundreds, but
I mean, I would be very surprised if we played Kled versus Renekton and we're just farming it out. But I mean, it is possible. Jachi's gonna want to try to avoid that, I guess, at this point because he is behind in the CS department and will probably not be able to catch up.
I think it is so difficult to get to 100 in this game mode, especially with how much fighting we typically tend to see. And also just the timer. For anybody who's unaware, we're not just going to be sitting in the ARAM map for 1 million years waiting for these guys to kill each other.
Yep.
It's whoever gets to first 2 kills, 100 CS, or a single turret. And there's a ring of fire that comes in at 7 minutes. That will start a sudden death timer. So anybody who dies during that, doesn't matter if you're at 1 kill or 0, that's instantaneous win after that spawns in. So I think the time in between it takes for all the minions to spawn, it gets very close to 100, and maybe if you wait, like, if you're able to just, like, stall out in the circle, you'll get to 100, but we have gotten to, like, maybe 85 before it's gone, before the game ends.
Yeah, definitely. As Leave almost gets dismounted, Jachi not being able to burn that off just yet, but honestly at this point with the going back to base right now here for Jachi, he's going to want to pick up his last item for sure before that ring of fire. You hear the announcer, that means we're getting closer to that moment as we'll finally get this matchup. Now I will say, Alk, I think in a situation where they are forced to both fight for the death at full HP, we definitely have to give it to the Kled. So Jachi, before the ring of fire starts closing in, he's going to have to get some nice early trades off to make sure that you know, Leave is chunked at least a little bit before.
Oh, new tech coming in from Leave. Everybody else who's been playing AD Bruisers, as we can see from Jachi, has been going for plated steel caps, but instead goes for the Elixir of Wrath, so he'll have bonus AD and Omnivamp, with the armor item. So cool. Different kinds of itemization coming in, which I think is super unique.
Oh man, you can see the Warden's Mail already doing a little bit. Those auto attacks not doing as much as they were before, as Leave getting a really nice trade here on Najachi. It might be NiP favored, especially if Leave will be able to dismount as the Ring of Fire is starting to close in. Najachi has both of his summoner spells back up.
Oh,
Ultimate
big
comes
win.
out. The charge does not connect, but Leave does have a nice shield, at least for a little bit, as here comes the all-in. The 1v1 4-side selection finally has begun. Najachi popping the barrier early on. Leave might not actually have an opportunity to remount if things go awry. There comes the stun. The slash and dash comes out. One more auto, and it will be Najachi picking it up right before Skarl comes back to the rescue.
Shanji even comes over his wrist. He's like, hey man, what went on with the 1v1? He missed out on one of the autos for his W. He started it too soon. He loses out on the passive. Najachi makes good. We had some question marks. He survived the first 6.5 minutes of that game. Even with the white flag that he threw up. Great job from RNG and their AD carry. They're going to get side select, and as you can see on your screen, immediately choose blue side. It is definitely, I think, the preferred side, and so we'll see what this means for the game, as obviously we'll be having draft coming up shortly.
I think an interesting thing to do before we get into playoffs is to look at what percentage of the teams that win the 1v1s end up winning the series at the end. Because I feel like, you know, the last series I cast at the very least, didn't end up. I don't think it ended up working out for LNG, as it was. I think Zika.
Oh,
won that
there was
1v1.
the Angel versus Zika one.
Yeah. So
unfortunate.
RNG on the blue side though. Blue side continuously very, very important, and as we wait for these players to load onto the Rift and start the Game 1 draft, we do want to highlight one more player, that being a player on RNG, and that is their mid laner Tangyuan, who it's had a really big bounce back year. As you can see on this graphic, last season, when he was still on RNG, one of the lone players remaining from this roster from 2024, he got a lot of slack, specifically from some of the Chinese fans. On Hoopa was the lowest rated player with a 4.45 average rating out of 10, but his play since then all has been exceptional.
It was really sad to watch, and as part of the international community, it was very easy, especially for co-streamers, to kind of bag on this guy. I think all of RNG and EDG of last year were just really struggling with their roster builds, and now we're here in 2025. I think some of that did follow Tangyuan as we came into the year. I was a little worried for this RNG squad, but I think his Demacia Cup, they didn't have any scrims, so I think we were willing to wipe the slate clean there. His 2 series so far in the LPL for 2025 have looked a lot better, so I'm tentatively excited for this RNG roster, and again, this mid-jungle between these two teams is going to be so impactful.
Yeah, he's going to have a tough go of things against Doinby this time around, a legend in his own right in the mid lane, as we kick off the Game 1 draft here in this Fearless Best of 5 between RNG and NiP. Right now, you can already see a little bit of respect thrown towards Doinby with that Galio takeaway, and also some of that AP jungle situation that we were talking about as well with Aki. That's going to be Zyra off the table, as well as Shanji's Udyr, who we whipped it out earlier this season as well.
I wonder if RNG are just calling for a Rumble blind, right? Just they got rid of the Galio. That seems like the most popular matchup. So NiP, kind of some options, especially earlier on into a Fearless system. The strong blinds for solo lanes are really, really important. So I'll be looking as to what NiP are looking for. Shanji is a good Gnar player, so that is something that they can be looking forward to.
Going to be an Aurora in response. That can be flexed around a little bit, although I think Doinby has played it earlier on in this season.
Yes.
See what the follow-up is here. And Bessa would make a lot of sense. It is, you know, something that the Rumble can burst down pretty quickly, especially towards the mid-game once he gets a couple of items. But the response will be an early Nocturne here for Milky Way, as well as Tangyuan on the Corki. So a very standard composition early on opening up here for RNG.
It seems like they're comfortable as well with eventually having that Orianna taken away from them, as we see with that Nocturne pair. Corki allows for them to have strong skirmishing coming in from the bottom lane, and so this RNG team is going to have a big wake up on level 6, and especially their first item. So here for NiP, I think that their draft is just so strange when you look at their prior series, especially when they have been so reliant on 1-2 on red side, looking for jungle, pairing that up with a blindable solo laner, especially kind of, I think, leveraging the flexibility of someone like Doinby. This time, however, the Aurora and the Mbessa kind of feels a little bit strange. We'll see what they'll be able to grab, and maybe they're going for some kind of support counter pick here, but it feels like NiP with their 2 solo lane picks kind of put themselves in a weird spot in my opinion.
Yeah, I do like the Jins out here for Aki. You do get a lot of value with that ultimate against both the Rumble Equalizer as well as just the rockets coming out from Tangyuan if things do end up going awry. It will be important to see, though, what Leave and PP God do have in order to round out this NiP composition. There's the Orianna takeaway that you were talking about, so no Nocturne Ori combo here for RNG, while Leave is getting the brunt of the bans, at least so far, in the second phase. That's the Ezreal that you were talking about. He popped off on that one earlier this season.
I think that this next ban has to be Varus. If it isn't Varus, it's probably going to be Caitlyn. These are just typical champions that deal very well with Corki, the range, being able to kind of outpoke him in a lot of situations. Getting rid of the Renata, so instead, they're going for the Rakan on 4. I think what NiP have is a really good snap composition. If they're able to find a pick, if they're able to find access onto someone, Rakan, Xin Zhao, and Mbessa are great champions at being able to jump onto the enemy team and maybe find someone like this Rumble, maybe find someone like this Corki.
When you pick a lot of, pick champions here for NiP, a common answer would be something like the Xayah, and double value in terms of breaking up that lovers duo here for Jauchi. He's been known for whipping out some more unorthodox carries like we were talking about. He's played things like the Tristana and the Aphelios that are not super meta these days, and so another champion like Xayah that has not seen a ton of priority going to be selected, and we'll see what NiKet wants to play in his first game of the LPL this year. Aurel would be a very solid option.
Some people might see 2 double AD carries and say, are you a little bit AD focused, especially with a Nocturne, but with the true damage that comes from Corki, I think this RNG comp is actually really well suited with being able to deal with the engage coming in from NiP. Seems like the popular counter into Xayah these days has been the Kai'Sa, and while NiP, I think, have a lot of upfront damage, they will have some scaling thanks to having the Aurora and someone like this Mbessa, especially as we get further into this game. NiP have a very one-note draft. They have a lot of things that can go right for them if they have a lot of damage early on, but I think if they find themselves at a goal deficit around 15 minutes, RNG are going to be in a really comfortable spot with waiting for Corki on 2 items and even this Rumble providing a lot of damage from the top lane.
Yeah, and for RNG, it becomes a pretty simple game plan once you get later into the game. It's whenever a major objective spawns, get there first and win the 5v5, and it seems like they have a pretty good composition to do that. On the other side, NiP gonna have to find picks, gonna have to single players out and get their numbers advantages in their own creative ways, which we know creativity Doinby is certainly capable of accomplishing. So before we get into the game, we have some predictions from both ourselves as well as some of our Discord participants. If you want to join the conversation, check out the link that I'm sure is getting spammed in the Twitch chat right now. Alk, you are very NiP coded. I feel like we might get something crazy here today.
Yeah, I'm glad. For those who don't know, that Discord is obviously for everybody on Discord, and then because of the bots, someone does have the highest pick rates, or I guess the correct predictions, and that'd be Theo over on the Discord. If you want to join them, like we said, why are you here for 5 games of RNG? You gotta explain this one to me, man.
I feel like it's a win-win. If my prediction is right, I'm correct, and also we get absolute chaos going into this Invictus Gaming series. But if I'm wrong, it's most likely going to be more of an NiP 3-0 than an RNG 3-0, and I get to go to bed a little bit early. So it's a win-win, you know?
Sure.
I'm here trying to root for entertainment, to root for the maximum content, and you're
We got maximum content last night, man. We had 5 games, a caster swap. We had maximum content for OMG Ultra Prime when no one was thinking that was gonna happen.
All right, so now we're gonna get it. Now we're gonna get it with actual stakes on the line potentially here. 2 really good superstars playing up against each other. It's Milky Way versus Doinby. It's RNG versus Ninjas in Pajamas. NiP have a chance to lock their spot into the quarterfinals with a win here today. Let's get on to the Rift for game number 1.
Already our 2 AD carries are fighting each other as I see we come into the game, and Jauchi and Leave are 75% HP. They're already fighting in the bottom lane, trying to get vision, trying to find vision onto the enemy opponents. And okay, we are going for strong level 1 invades. Hey, Nocturne and Rel, good enough on the level 1. Maybe they do a strong wrap around the bottom lane, but this is mostly just going to be cutting the map in half, as Milky Way will have complete control of the bottom side of the map, and Aki, as long as he doesn't have any information on this, should be feeling more than comfortable to kind of, he's going to walk in his bottom side and say, oh, I have no camps here. Oh god.
I will say, Jotchi and NiKet, while they have to get the XP and maintain lane control a little bit, walking down from the river like that might have given things away a little bit. So we'll see if Aki calls the bluff and tries to go for a vertical jungle situation, or if, as you mentioned, he goes and finds himself a bit of a nasty surprise waiting for him in his bottom side jungle. But really good start here. Creative play early on here for RNG. I think they know that they are a bit of the underdogs here and might need to play a little bit more than the standard play if they want to have a chance of pulling off the win.
I think Xiaosu is actually in such a tough spot. Didn't hit level 2 before Shanji. Shanji has half a level over on his opponent, and his jungler is on the opposite side of the map. If you're playing Rumble, typically you want to put a little bit more resources. And to say that now is going for the engage.
Yeah, already forcing both summoner spells away from Leave. This Kaisa in a little bit of trouble here as Milky Way lands the tether. There comes the fear. It's going to be first blood, secured by the jungler of Royal Never Give Up.
There we go, and Aki makes a trade as soon as Milky Way shows. He's on the opposite side of the map. I don't know if they'll be able to secure a dive. The wave isn't in a great spot. Maybe if they can force this Rumble to push out the wave just a little bit more, but great job coming in from RNG, getting the flash and the cleanse out from Leave, and potentially buying your bottom lane a little bit more time here, as Jotchi and Lila were doing so well in RNG in the past weeks in their previous series, and I think one of my worries that we'll see whether or not it comes to fruition is what this 2v2 looks like with NiKet's addition.
Yeah, you know, adjusting not just for a roster swap in general, but specifically, you know, a bot lane change where, you know, you get these two people playing in the lane together that were not doing so before. Always has a little bit of questions. There comes the Hex Slash from NiKet as he's already going for an early roam. Lands a stun onto Doinby for a little bit of style points, but won't be able to do too much on top of that.
Okay. Good job, NiKet. That's just called buying your mid laner a recall. Sometimes that's all you gotta do. PP God's going to find Milky Way right now, just grabbing Vision, and ooh, actually pushes him off thanks to, again, moved in. They had move of mid. Tang Yuan was like, oh, I'm just going to get my recall in, but instead it's going to be double scuttles here for Aki. So, you know, trading the first blood in favor of double scuttle doesn't feel too bad. Tang Yuan?
He didn't go for the reset, actually. Oh, if that Q hit, that would have procced the passive. Could have gotten a little bit hairy here for Tang Yuan, who decides to actually still stay. Does have to teleport if he wants it, but PP God going to pressure him back, and looks like Tang Yuan knows better than to try and risk himself going down in a 1v2.
Interesting that Doinby's also gone for the Arcane Comet build, wanting to try to outpoke his opponent. Typically we tend to see the Electrocute change. We are not on 3 yet, as Leave gets engaged up on again. Yeah,
there comes the callback as well from Jotchi. Remember, Leave doesn't have any summoner spells and will just go down. The Kaisa pick for Leave not working out early, as it's Jotchi coming ahead with 2 early kills for RNG.
Look, we had some eyes on this bottom lane duo. We were saying that Jotchi was an exciting rookie coming in from LDL. Him and NiKet have hit the ground running into this 2v2, and I feel like a little bit of egg on my face. I was saying that PP God was such a strong laner by himself, and we're here 5 minutes. Now PP God's left to roam mid. His AD carry gets solo killed.
Oh, wow. They think that it's so unplayable to leave the Kaisa down there that they're actually opting for now a lane swap, sending Shanji back down to the bottom lane. It looks like instead, Jotchi and NiKet are going to call their bluff, go back up to the top side. Good timing for both bot lanes to rotate up with the grub spawning in 30 seconds anyway.
Yeah, I think that's more so the reasoning for this. Leave just, he got forcibly made to recall and then wait in the gray screen. He's like, okay guys, I'll be rotating for grubs as soon as I've respawned and I'm back out onto the map. It will be NiP having first say into the river. A Scryer's Bloom from NiKet is going to spot out PP God and Aki, but as you can already see, Shanji's on the move, but doesn't have level 6. He's going to have to leech a little bit of experience from this mid lane. And NiP are just trying to find any member of RNG that's going to walk into their jungle. I think RNG, you have a couple of options. You can play for the engage. You do have some combat summoner spells, and I think with Xiaosu having the ultimate, that is something you can go for. But why risk it? Wait till you have level 6 on Milky Way and make sure that you're going to be in a really strong spot in just a minute's time.
NiKet being a little bit of a nuisance as well, and it looks like RNG decide, instead of going for the grubs, which can give you extra damage to turrets, they're going to just take some damage on the bot lane turret himself, with Xiaosu picking up a plate. As soon as Shanji showed up, I guess RNG realized they don't want to burn Shasu's TP to try and make it a 5v5, so instead it's going to go for that trade and get a little bit of gold now, which they now find themselves up about 1,000.
Milky Way should be close to, yeah, he dings level 6 now. They can go for the dive. They're stacking a wave on this bottom lane. Shanji, half a quarter. I think he's a little too healthy, and with him having the flash and the ult, I think it's a bit tough. We'll see what Milky Way can grab on this recall, because he kind of has, I don't want to say a timer on this game, but you really want to make sure that you can punish and abuse some of Rumble's early strengths. And we'll see if that's going to be the case. There is a dragon spawning here, and seems like NiP are going to be playing, at least for right now, around this objective. They've already moved Doinb over, and maybe if they can get level 6 on PP God, it's playable.
Speaking of early game Rumble, fascinating to see Jatsu start with the plated steel caps. First item against Shanji and Aki. This, I guess, you know, physical damage focused top side. You also have Leave,
and Bessa's just too broken, man. Like, gets level 6, has armor pen, gets healing as well. It's just too strong. You have to do it.
So now we're back to this enemy blue buff here for RNG, which Milky Way took away the first go around, and I don't think Aki wants that to happen this time. Milky Way does have the smite and will be able to secure the objective. Pops Paranoia as well, and actually are going to go on to leave. He does have his flash up, and he will use it to escape. And that means that RNG make their way back here to this Hextech Drake, or peel off of it with successfully taking away that blue buff.
They're a little too worried. They want to spot out where Aki is, mark the enemy jungler. They should know that he's in that brush, because Milky Way did land the Q, but all this happening, Milky Way, I think Tangyuan's actually losing a lot for this. He's losing out on mid waves at Doinb. Oh, wait a minute!
Flash onto Doinb, lands the crash down as well. The Between Worlds will buy some space, and it will be enough for Doinb to escape. A very creative play, though, from NiP and RNG, the new support here for Royal, doing a lot of work early on.
And that grabs them the dragon. NiP is just looking like, look, early call here. He is a really strong support. We had lots of eyes on him from 2024, and like I said during the pre-show, it was a surprise to me to not see him on an LPL team. I know that he was going to go play under TES. And
he's here again.
Walking in a fog,
yeah,
man.
Spotting out Aki, who tries to go in for the steal. The dragon, notably, though, has not been secured. Maybe a little bit too far here for Leave, as he does take down NiP. Leave comes in. Looks like the dragon will be finalized here. RNG picking that one up.
We'll take that, though. That we were able to force out some summoner spells. Ooh. Leave again. No flash this time. That play around the bottom side Shroud Brush where they immediately engaged with Milky Way, that was his killer instinct. Now he doesn't have the summoner spell, and that's going to be kind of a boon for RNG, as within the next 30 seconds, you know, we have the grub spawning in a minute. Leave will have killer instinct, but that can be something you can still punish as Nocturne's ultimate is up and available.
We got the gold back to around even with that kill going over. It was Leave picking that one up. Now has a full static Shiv. Will allow the wave clear situation, obviously, to be easier. And right now, next thing to fight for was likely these grubs. You see Jatsu most likely going for a reset. RNG probably don't want to give away all 6 of these grubs. I would imagine that they put a little bit more effort towards trying to fight for these this time.
For NiP, it would be great. The problem is that they haven't had too much time to actually hit turrets. The only person that's really been kind of putting in that work on the structures is Doinb, and that has been, I think, large in part due to RNG pulling Tangyuan away from the 1v1. Yeah,
and actually it looks like NiP maybe giving this one up a little bit, as you see Doinb now rotating towards the bottom side of the map, and RNG going to get first say around the Void Grubs. Looks like Aki going to opt to farm instead of looking to contest, at least for now. So this likely will at least negate the opportunity for a feat of strength going over for NiP this time around. But now Aki is in the area. Doinb does have the teleport if they want to fight, but I don't imagine they want to.
Walking into fog,
PP
God,
spots out NiP and Jachi, and it looks like that will mean that they can get away.
They're buying time right now as Doinb is hitting this bottom lane turret. They're getting him plates, and we were talking about it, I think, during the pre-show a little bit about, I think, the influence of having someone like Doinb. But when we talk about the in-game, Doinb has been really, really good about playing for side lanes. I think that has always been, I think, traditionally a strength of his, especially when we talk about, you know, things like the Kled and then playing for team fights and his impact. He's been so creative. I think in our interview with Patty, he was talking about the Rise ultimate in Game 2, and he was just like, that happened without me even thinking about it. I was not even able to process it fast enough. My hand was already hitting the R key before I could comprehend what was going on. So I'm looking for what Doinby can do and how much of an impact he'll have on this game, especially with how RNG have played the early set so far.
And now RNG with Doinby on the bottom side, opt to go to the other side of the map. Try to pick up some plates at the very least on this top side. Janji going to try to clear the wave. Instead, they landed the Magnet Storm in onto PP God, who is
oh my
but
god!
does sting level
PP God!
6. Milky Way will take the kill and the feat of strength, but will go down in a 1v1 trade. Doinby teleports up to the top side, so they do buy a little bit of space here for Zhatsu on the bottom end, and it will be a 1-for-1 overall, but RNG, I think, coming out on top here.
I wonder if maybe they're even going to try to set up a dive onto this Rumble, but with how things were going on top side, NiP just have to snap, make the call. They get the TP out from Doinby, and it is only just a 1-for-1 trade. I want to kind of see in this replay, what else are they able to grab from this? Great engage coming in from Niket and from Milky Way. These two in tandem basically make it almost impossible for PP God to get any of his spells off, and it only is just barely after all of this is said and done, but seems like for the most part it was maybe getting a summoner spell. I think the flash out for PP God is a very big impact, but look at what they traded. No flash on Corki, no flash on Nocturne. So those next in trips for someone like Nocturne is gonna be a one-way for this guy.
Does have the experimental hex play, so we'll be able to do a lot of damage once he does go in here with that ultimate, but of course without that flash it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You can see right now the carries for NiP ahead in the gold by a very solid margin, I should say here. You know, the fun thing about Doinby is that he's happy to stack waves and things like that, but has been able to pick up a ton of turret plates here in these last couple of minutes for his team.
And look at where Leave is. He's somehow up 200 gold despite being down 2 deaths, which I think is surprising, especially with how this early game was going, and I think worrisome for a team like RNG. They're one that I think have some pretty sloppy mid games sometimes and are really reliant on either their bottom lane finding a massive engage, or, you know, Milky Way and Tangyuan, this 2v2 having, I think, some really strong prowess in side lanes, which you can do skirmisher in Corki and on a long side lane with someone like Nocturne to empower him. It's definitely a possibility.
Looks like Tangyuan, though, is going to want to clear this wave out, maybe head for a bit of a reset because the fact that the dragon is spawning in 10 seconds. Looks like instead he's going to stay around for one more as turret plates are about to fall. Would be second dragon for RNG if they're able to pick that up. It would be also the full feats of strength going over to them as they've taken now 2 of the 3 objectives with that first dragon and second spawn of Grub. So Ninjas in Pajamas going to want to try and be there first to make sure that doesn't happen.
Tangyuan's going to continue pushing on this top wave. He does have teleport to be able to match here, and if Shanji moves, he'll have first play. It will be with the mini wave that is under the turret here for Xiaoshu, but big item spikes. We talked about Milky Way having that first buy for the experimental hex plate, and while Joshi does have the Essence Reaver, doesn't seem like they're going to be able to really leverage that into an objective win, at least for right now. Seems like instead the play is towards the bottom side of the map. Doinby basically annihilates minion waves, and if they really want to, they can look for this, except RNG are blocking them at the pass. If you see over by the Raptor pit, it is just 80 carry and support. They do not want to allow Leave and PP God into the area.
Instead, they're going to go maybe the long way a little bit. I would say also nicely done by NiP to drag the dragon out of the pit at least a little bit. Made sure that Milky Way did not get vision on the Drake or any of the champions before Smite ended up becoming a possibility to steal things away. So NiP evening out the dragon count at 1 as we do see some teleports down to the bottom side. Meanwhile, the bot laners going at it as well as Jachi won the 1v1 earlier. Going to try to win the 1v1 again, this time getting a little help from Milky Way, but Leave will be able to flash out.
No ult, no flash from Leave as PP God tries to make this engage, and that's got to be Jachi going down.
Yeah, not even going to want to burn the flash. He will fall. The overextension results in a big punish for NiP. They're going to pick up 2 kills as well as this mid lane turret.
Even if they would have found that kill onto Kaisa, it is just not enough here as RNG overextend for NiP's 80 carry, and now the entire map has exploded. NiP, they gain control of that mid-tier 1, they take it down, then they move into top side, so now Xiaoshu has to be careful, like, am I getting dove? Are there going to be multiple members jumping in under the turret? RNG, at least for their trade, will be able to grab a turret on the back end, and maybe we see something of that kind of come through on this Herald that's spawning, but this 1v1 between Jachi, so close here. I think the fact that Jachi actually ends up using his ultimate without them being able to secure the flash, it's a bit risky because he just used the Blade Caller, so it would have to be an instant snapback, and yeah, just turns into a kill found in mid here.
There's a lot of patience from Leave there as well, saving the Killer Instinct until he's underneath the tower to just get a little bit of extra distance away from Milky Way as he comes in with the Paranoia. That saves his life, and it also buys time for the rest of his team to come in and now help NiP get up to a 1,500 gold lead as we approach the 17-minute mark of this game. Rift Herald now has spawned, and that should be the next topic of conversation for both of these squads.
Ooh, this is so dangerous. So, like you're saying, Herald is up. You have Dragon in 2.5 minutes, but for both of these teams, it would be that ability to get the feats of strength. And I'm trying not to get distracted by the shiny graphics, but they did say that NiP have a first turret win percentage. So, pretty insane. If they're able to grab that first turret, they win all of their games. We'll see what NiP are able to do from this spot, because despite what was the first 10 to 12 minutes here, NiP's bounce back has been really incredible. I think the fact that Leave has stabilized so well and is even garnering a small lead for himself, and this Rumble really hasn't done all that much. We didn't see them take control of top side very strongly, so I need to see a little bit more from RNG, and maybe that comes from the mid lane. We talked about the improvement coming in from Tongyuan, but he's very close to finishing Muramana. That'll be, I think, the big power spike coming in for this team.
Yeah, so it looks like before they get to that spike, RNG don't feel comfortable fighting against NiP at this point, so they will give up the feats of strength as the Rift Herald will go Aki's way. Nicely done here by NiP. They send a lot of resources top lane. They get what they came there for. And we'll get some upgraded boots as well.
They're making a play. They just know. Thanks to the terrain of the map, thanks to NiP getting that first turret, or that turret in mid, they can just move into this top side, start to cut off some of the resources for RNG. Maybe even stop Xiaosu from getting into this turret. Again, they have 3 grubs. They're summoning the Herald here as well. I think they want to try to find some summoner spells, maybe get an ultimate or 2, so this Otacon in 1.5 minutes, they force RNG to have to walk into them.
Rift Herald comes out, almost takes down the turret, but it looks like Aki will be able to do
Niket?
that and finish the job. Niket going for an early engage, already forcing PP God to flash out, use the quickness, but look at the Mbessa here on the front line. Shanji buying so much space. Here comes Doinby with the Between the Worlds, does not land the Q or the damage of the ultimate onto anybody, so that will be a play abandoned for NiP. The observers maybe calling Doinby out here.
He said in the interview, man, hey, my age is not what it used to be, okay? You know, age might be a factor in some of these plays. And Doinby may be overestimating the mobility of this champion. Unfortunately, Doinby, despite your champion coming out in the last year, you're not Mbessa. You do not have 1 million dashes. You only have 2, depending on resets.
And that means that not enough gap closing there. He was able to escape with his life, getting closer to that second item. We'll get another look at this replay here. Aki, it seems like NiP were just a little bit split. Nice job by Niket to force the engage and force the fight to one side.
Yeah, and I will say, as much as this was NiP, I think, focusing on short-term gold gains and potentially grabbing an advantage, they wasted a lot of summoner spells. Not only Doinby's flash, but there's no cleanse available for this Kai'Sa. There is no flash or heal for this bottom lane. So could be an angle for RNG to look at, especially for someone like Niket, who had a really strong early part to this game, and unfortunately the rest of RNG haven't really been able to snap all together. I think they really need to pull in Xiaoshu into some of these plays, because he's just been splitting this whole time, and we need the Rumble to show up to team fights eventually.
Yeah, the big strength here for RNG is their 5v5 team fighting, but they have not really been able to have a situation where everything comes into fruition at the right time, where Niket gets a huge ultimate, Milky Way finds a Paranoia, Equalizer comes down, and I think a lot of it is just because of the map movements here from NiP. They seem to be arriving at these plays first a lot of the time, and they've been controlling the objective game, especially in these last 10 minutes or so.
Observers, I saw you in the pip. That was a great bit of supportal warfare coming through. It feels tough. It feels tough here, Grapes. Like, we wanted to see RNG with this great team fight, like you were saying, engage with Niket, but NiP are both kind of willing to opt into it, and RNG just haven't really found a way to include the Rumble into plays. I am looking for, obviously we talked about the items, power spikes that are coming in for RNG, but NiP, I think, are more than comfortable getting to 2-3 items. I mean, Doinby's already finished 2 here in mid lane, right? And that's with him getting a lot of influx of gold from turrets. Now has the Shadow Flame and the Ludens, plus the upgraded boots. This Aurora is very dangerous to deal with. And I don't know if there's anybody really in a side lane that can win that 1v1. Maybe if you can include Milky Way, that'll be an angle for them. But we're seeing NiP start to get into position for this Otacon. Dragon was already taken by them, and NiP has a monster flank, but again, we need to see this team actually get in position. He gets 6 spotted by Ludens!
Oh,
man.
That's unlucky. And you can see as well, Jatsu is forced to catch this top wave, so will not be at the play early. And that allows Shanji a timer to run down to the mid lane, save the teleport for another time. And now NiP is in a lot of trouble. He has to flash and use the crash down to just escape with his life. That is a big cooldown taken away here by the RNG support. And that means that NiP will be able to at least control this bot lane tower. And they're actually going to make their way over to the Otacon as well.
Yeah. I love how Shanji has been able to play this Mbessa. I think that he's really matched where he needed to be. He's forced Xiaoshu or someone like Tang Yuan to actually come and respect the waves. We're going to get the teleport coming in. This has to be the team fight for RNG. And Shanji has a huge flank.
Otacon at 5,000 HP. It gets pulled out a little bit, but the aggro range is pretty long. Gonna get a reset right now as NiP are happy enough with just getting the teleport out of the Rumble. They're gonna head back to base after knowing that next time around they won't have the Rumble TP to deal with or NiP's flash. As actually NiP going to get caught out here, Leave dashing in with the Killer Instinct. PP God following up, and that means that NiP will fall and NiP make their way right back to the Otacon.
There it is. We're starting up the Otacon. RNG just never found the timer to engage. They got completely routed off thanks to the pull off of the Otacon, and now they're going to be able to get resets. They're going to get revives. It's not as strong as it used to be, but look at this Milky Way marking Shanji. Shanji has no idea.
Paranoia comes out, but now Shanji caught in a bit of a 1v4. Gonna have to try to escape here. Perfect execution, or public execution comes out. Dash over the wall is not enough.
Wow.
And it will be a shutdown going Jiaozu's way. So nicely done by RNG to collapse onto the flank. And now it's a 5v4 in their favor as they start up the Otacon.
We are going to be starting up the Otacon. I think this is still pretty risky. Doinby's going to be moving in. Gets the W, gets a bit of damage onto Milky Way, but this is already down. Can Aki make the steal?
Yeah, NiP making his way back here to the play as well. Comes in, it will be secured here by Jachi of all people. Already one forced to revive. That is Milky Way down there, but Tang Yuan going to go in. Remember, they have the revives. They can go all the way in. It's a shutdown onto Aki, and RNG are right back into this game. They win a big fight around the major objective.
RNG have come to tussle. We were saying that this was an NiP favored series, and we have Tang Yuan flashing over, making big plays onto his opponents. I think that that's a play we probably would not have seen from Tang Yuan of 2024, but I think with this RNG roster, they feel very confident in their placement. I feel like this is just a caster curse from me. I was just saying great things about Shanji, and then he gets caught out on the side lane, uses his flash as well at the end of that play, which opens up the Otacon. And now they have a revive. The next minute and a half, it is off of a player like Tang Yuan, but I think they can still continue to be a bit aggressive, especially towards the top side. We've got Dragon spawning in 40. We've got the Baron in 10. I wouldn't be surprised to see RNG start up this Baron and really try to force the issue onto NiP. Do not be, the secondary dance partner here for this team. Lead NiP around the map. You do not want to have to play second fiddle.
Exactly. RNG's teamfight composition we talked about in the draft is very, very good. They can go over to this Baron and start it up, allow NiP to go in and try to fight a 5v5 would work wonders for them at this point, as they are now back to even in the gold department. Looks like they think that Baron's a little bit too risky, but they do have the Dragon spawning in just 5 seconds. Getting that second Infernal will be very, very solid for them, as they will make another play towards the mid lane before heading over to them.
Ooh, they can go for it. NiP can look. He has Hex Flash as well. They're waiting for Xiaoshu maybe. Thanks is not, just let Milky Way while he's doing the Dragon this entire time. RNG, I think, need to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to these objectives. You do have double marksman here with Corki and this Saya, which means that objectives like Baron, like Dragon, do shred really, really fast. And that'll be something that we'll have to be taking a look at, as now we have 2 Dragons apiece for both teams. So unless this game goes extra late, I don't think we're seeing a Dragon Soul, but game's remarkably even for how much we kind of set up NiP early.
Uh-oh. Tang Yuan maybe in a little bit of trouble here.
No
Has
flash.
to revive at least for a little bit. It's not going to time out, so he will likely, oh, they're waiting. They're trying to stall it out. They know the timer is over soon, and they bide their time and allow for Leave to pick up the shutdown. Paranoia does come in, though. Milky Way looking for Aki. Will be able to pick up the kill. Shanji goes a little bit too far forward, and now Jiaozi will flash in onto Leave and force him away from the fight. Doinby is very far in, has to go golden, but will fall. RNG winning another fight as Aki picks up another.
Oh, can Lee find it? He walks up, he finds the plasma procs, kills NiKet on the spot. This Kai'Sa kind of feels like the last weapon in the arsenal for NiP as they take a sloppy fight around this blue buff. Yeah, you timed it around the Otacon respawn, but think about you lost during this fight. No flash on this Kai'Sa anymore as we get a replay of this. It's just great timing. I'm glad that they're able to show a little bit of patience. They know that the timer is coming up. And while it's nice that they were able to find Tangyuan here, I think it just takes way too long. Yeah. Leave comes into this play. You know that the reactivity from RNG is going to be on a great snapback, like having this Nocturne ult come straight into your backline. I will also say, I think R280 carries, while Leaves, I think, early game left a lot to be desired. Jiaozi and him have been, I think, trading blows all game long here.
It goes back to that question of trying to leave Tangyuan open to finally leave him alive until, you know, the revive comes out. You could have just taken the 200 gold and backed out, but instead they opt to go for the larger fight. I think RNG get net 1 kill on that and keep the gold lead very, very close. I think the notable thing, though, is that all of a sudden Jiaozi is a lot stronger now, has the Seeker's Arm Guard working towards that Zanya's, and it looks like NiP actually are the ones who want to start a fight. They know that Tangyuan is on the bottom side, and there's no vision in the Baron pit. They're going to try to burst this down before RNG have anything to say about it.
NiKet's already almost dead. They can't make an engage. This is probably just going to be the Baron going over. Tangyuan is taking a lot on the side lane. How much can he get done while this Baron is being taken? Seems like it's only going to be that single turret. Let's see what NiP are actually able to do. I will say the parts that are going well for them, they have a push in top lane. The mid-tier one hasn't fallen yet, so it is very easy for them to actually push out of mid and move in. The timer on this Baron is also going to overlap with the dragon, so I don't think RNG are going to be seeing that third or the fifth dragon of the game here for themselves as NiP get a large amount of gold put into their back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, that's the largest criticism I have for RNG so far in this first game is their indecision making, like their lack of decision making, I should say. They, with this team fighting comp, should be comfortable with going around objectives, but it seems like they're never willing to fully commit for a 5v5. It seems like they're actually the ones playing the sidelines more than NiP at this point, with Tangyuan on the Corki always in the side trying to pick up a little bit of extra farm, and it has not allowed for RNG to fight these team fights the way that they might want to. And now NiP have the Baron buff for 2 minutes. They could try to break open some of the structures themselves and get themselves right back into control of this first game.
So let's do a carry check here, because like you were saying, the split pushing that Tangyuan has been doing does mean that he has an objective lead. He has 1,000 gold over Doinby, so 3 items on this Corki is a huge change. Thank you to some of our production. 40% damage share with this Kai'Sa is insane, especially because there's not that many tanks. This is not like you have a Sejuani and a Maokai/Ornn in top lane. This is an Ambessa and a Sinsao. So this Kai'Sa does so much damage. You have the Q evolve with those 2 items with the Static Shiv and the Essence Reaver. You also now have the Zork Pen boots alongside the Shadow Flame and Void Staff.
And you can see how much damage it does.
Those plasma procs basically one-shot everybody.
Okay. RNG, pop the Paranoia, looking for a play up at the top side, as Shanji's actually the one who gets targeted, lands the public execution on to Tangyuan, should be able to dash away, flash away, with the rest of his team joining him in the top side river. So that's an ultimate used, and now Milky Way on the runaway, and NiP are here to try to chase him down. Here comes TP God using the Blast Cone over the wall. Nice use of the Spell Shield for Milky Way to escape. The Between Worlds does connect. That is a lot of damage onto the Nocturne, but not enough. Now it might be a bit of an overextension as Leave drives under the turret. Jiaozi picks up 2. It's actually a double kill going to NiKet, the Rel of all people, as the overextension for NiP makes 2 of their players go down, but there's no jungler on RNG's side. Aki should pick up Soul Point here for Ninjas in Pajamas.
I think it was so tragic to see Milky Way having to do, you know, what every other jungler has to do, which is walk away from the opponents, and a solo lane's like, 07, thanks bro, I'm just going to teleport out of this play. I'll see you back at base if I have to. Big win, I think, for RNG, who despite losing out, I think, on the play onto Shanji, got so many kills, finding Leave and PP God in the end of that fight. NiP not able to do all that much with their Baron. They've only gotten the mid tier 2 and the bottom tier 2, as well as this Dragon, which sets them up on Soul Point, but now they've got the trade. RNG will have got those kills, as well as now finally the mid tier 1.
Yeah, and apart from just the gold that Baron provides, basically a net neutral on the Baron buff for NiP. RNG doing a really nice job, and we have to credit Milky Way here. If he died around this area of the map, would have not been able to get those 2 kills right back, but a really excellent use of the spell shield, as well as just not enough damage coming out, forcing Leave to overextend.
Leave and PP God go forward, Killer Instinct and Flash for Rakan, and then they're just stuck under the turret. Even getting Leave's cleanse, I think, really big win. My problem I think I have with this play now is, how do RNG play the game? Because you've now gotten to the point here at 32 minutes, 4-item Kaisa, who is going AP, she will always outrange your team, and if she really wants to try to not get one-shotted by something like the Nocturne, can just opt into the Zonias. And it just seems like this is not even fully stacked Plasma procs. That's a third of Jauchi's HP. Yeah. Imagine what happens if the entire passive goes off.
And you can see he's going for a more defensive build, now building the Hex Drinker just to be safer from those Void Seekers. You know, Doinby providing probably a little bit of threat there as well. But remember, it was Jauchi who actually got off to the early lead. Him and Niket got those early 2v2 kills. And now it is Leave, the main threat here, probably the strongest player across both squads.
Those are the big eyes, especially with an early game that was as questionable as it was for NiP and their bottom lane losing the 2v2. RNG, their early game has been really good, especially when we talk about their bottom lane. But like we said, the mid game is where it really starts to get into an issue. And I think that's where I think some of the veteran voices of a team like NiP start to kick in, and being able to lead the team as to where they need to be able to go. We talk about PP God, who has been playing for a while, especially him, and I think Doinby get to play the map really, really well. So, minute before Baron, we'll see how RNG are able to set up, because from here on out, I expect NiP, barring some massive teamfight flub, are going to be looking to take this game, but I think this game has proven that they're not playing the cleanest, at least in this first game.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very close in gold right now. I think we saw the graphic there in the bottom half of your screen. Only 50, it's 50.2 to 49.8 in terms of the gold share right now between these two teams. That is how neck and neck it has been. Of course, gold allocated in different locations for both of these teams. You know, Leave is the main carry here for NiP, but the soul laners for RNG should be packing a bit of a punch here as well. It's going to come down to them. If they can execute on these 5v5 team fights, maybe even look for some picks of their own. Niket's been really good at catching players on NiP out if they do step a little bit too far.
That ward from NiP is doing dirty, dirty work here for them. The fact that it sees so many RNG members able to stop them, and they basically also, with these Void Seekers, just get like a free Farsight alteration whenever they want. They can just check Fog of War without having to face check into it. So NiP, with this single lone mid-lane minion, are probably not going to be getting too much done. RNG are not starting up this Baron. They need to stop some kind of vision. Every single Void Seeker just means it goes back on a 2-second cooldown. This is so annoying to deal with.
And now we're playing Australian mode a little bit as RNG on the wrong side of the mid lane. I see a team fight try to open up. Tongyuan trying to catch this mid wave out early as Niket's already taken down to about 60% HP. These Voice Seekers really doing a lot of work as RNG have to play dodgeball essentially while still trying to figure out when they want to go for an engage.
And because they've done this, now they were trying to catch the wave high in mid.
Niket is so
this
low.
is not going to be the case anymore. They're just starting this up. They're waiting to see if Tongyuan is going to be either on this side lane or if Niket's going to be going for the engage. He's not spotted this time, but Tongyuan's almost down. Leave does have enough points in his ultimate. He should be able to get onto anybody from here.
We're just barely missing Milky Way right there. Look at the damage charts at the bottom right now. So far, Leave has done 2,600 damage before anybody has done any other damage to champions here in this extended play. Niket, though, has a big flank. Low HP, but looking to target Doinby. Doesn't get away here with the dash and is forced to pop Zani's Hourglass before flashing away. Here comes Aki, pops the Crescent Guard, landing the knock-up onto Jauchi, who has to use the barrier in response. Right now, nobody falling, but the health bar is very much on NiP's side, and Leave still at full HP with both of his summoner spells. Voice Seeker comes out, not connecting once again. Tongyuan dashing away from PP God, but already Niket will fall as Doinby essentially one-shots him. public execution for Sanji does not connect. Jachi, though, with the blade caller, will be able to pick one back up. But here comes Leave, and the Kaisa is looking to run away here with this fight, dashing in onto Tong Yuan, and it is 4-1 in favor of NiP.
6,000 damage, and NiP's AD carry leaves RNG in the dust. Baron's gonna be their take, and the team fight just looked too free. RNG just could not find an angle into the fight. NiKet was half HP. They lose almost all of their summoner spells in the trade. This game feels like it has to be over. They even have the soul that's already up with this dragon. This dance around the top side just feels doomed from the start. Half HP on most of your members before it starts, and Doinb one-shots NiKet with a combo from this Aurora. It is just so annoying to deal with this composition. As RNG, they didn't find the snap, they didn't find the engage, and Leave just killer instincts right into the backline and destroys whatever hope RNG have.
Yeah, Jachi tried to flash away from that W from Leave, but just was a millisecond too late. That allowed for Leave to use the killer instinct on top of him and eventually finish him off. Now has a death cap in his inventory, as NiP will also be able to pick up the Infernal Soul. These Kaisa Ws are going to start to hurt real fast off.
Yeah, 500 AP here for Doinb, and you got to be looking at Leave. Hasn't upgraded the boots, but like you said, finishing death cap there, has 3 AP items alongside it. The Infernal Soul proc itself is just going to make this untenable. So now here for RNG, it's all about defense, and for NiP, I want to see how cleanly they're able to close this one out, as again, this is an expected match for them, but I don't think we were expecting how close.
Oh my
Looking
God.
very playable right about now.
Oh, that's just 2 Ws that could almost one-shot the enemy AD carry right now. Really nice adjustment here for Leave to go for this poke build, really countering a lot of what RNG want to do in this 5v5 comp. Meanwhile, Milky Way just caught out of position right now, looking for some extra vision or some sort of flank. Forced to go back to base after burning the ultimate, and now means that NiP can continue the siege here onto this mid lane inhibitor turret. Looks like they'll pick that one up. Shanji dashing forward. NiKet will have to head back to base. NiP not deciding that they want to try to end the game right now. Instead, they'll head back, make good use of the gold that they have earned in this Baron power play, and look for their next play on the other side of the map.
And Leave upgrades his boots, so he's got flat and percentage magic pen. Oh no, NiKet almost dies during that whole play. We have artillery Kaisa coming on through. Milky Way almost goes down. I mean, there's not much else to put in this game. I think that this is a hard-fought game here. On NiP, their early game was not perfect, but it came down to that mid-game decision-making, the fact that we weren't able to see them kind of connect the pieces with the team-fight composition that we wanted to see from them, and maybe I think back to the drawing board. We have seen RNG be able to bounce back in a lot of these series, and I think some of their team fighting has been a lot stronger, just a little bit slow to the trigger this time.
And if you are RNG, gonna have to find a way to kill Leave early before he's able to do a ton of damage.
He's not even on the same screen as you, man.
Gotta find some way. Maybe Rumble ult with the Nocturne ulti or something. But right now,
Grab his keyboard right now.
yeah, looks like time's running out. Only one more wave of the Baron buff, and it will not be able to get too much. But NiP is still very powerful. They've extended their gold lead to over 5k, and they'll be happy to just continue to poke away at these HP bars and keep RNG in their own base.
I mean, it basically comes down to, in 3 minutes has NiP ended the game, because if NiP haven't, then they can just go to the Baron, or they can go to the Elder Dragon, and the game's going to end either way. So in the next 3 minutes, we have to see either if RNG able to find and engage, maybe here on the PP God.
Going for broke, just on the PP God though. That's a lot of cooldowns burned just for the enemy support. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, it is going to be a 1v2 here for Shanji, but he has the Guardian Angel. Tong Yuan barely will escape with his life, as it will be Shanji getting burned. A down kill going into Jachi's hands. So now a 4v5 on the map. However, looks like Aki and the rest of NiP don't want to let RNG reset. They're going here for the Nexus Towers right now. Leave dashing in with the Killer Instinct, trying to avoid RNG from heading into the fountain, but they won't be able to do so just yet. But look at Doinb. That's 2 kills going over, and now a numbers advantage right back into NiP's face. They're headed onto the Nexus turrets. The first one already burning. Already going to be Zhao Shu going down. Jachi going to try to save the game. He picks himself up a kill on the PP God, but the 80 carries is not going to be enough here for RNG.
Wait a minute, okay.
Can Jachi do it? The answer is no. Leave unstoppable. Doinb still in, but the Super Minions crashing down onto the enemy Nexus. Milky Way will not be able to save the game here for RNG, as Ninjas in Pajamas take game 1 of the series.
Insane win from them, especially with how the early game started, the 2v2 found for RNG. The early game, I mean, they were very close to finishing off feats of strength, like 12 minutes into the game. And then NiP with some creative team fighting. It wasn't clean, it wasn't perfect, but when is League of Legends ever, really? So that was, I think, a game that really, I think, puts a lot of respect onto their map play and calls into question some of the confidence from RNG. I think the strongest parts of that game were when NiKet actually found the engages, found picks, and went in onto the opponents. And that, I think, was a strength that he had last year as well.
And it seemed like RNG didn't want to group up and fight until it was potentially too late. Once Leave got super strong, was able to poke people out there with the Void Seekers, it became very, very difficult for RNG to play the game. If they got to an objective too early, NiP could just continue to poke them out and then strike when their moment was right. And once we got into the later stages, both Leave and Doinby doing a lot of damage here to the RNG champions. I will say, I think it's a pretty easy most valuable player guess here for this first one. Despite all of the pressure that Leave was given and the 2v2 kills that went over towards Jachi and NiKet, I think that he did more than enough in the later stages of the game to deserve that one.
I just want to see what his damage share is, because when you're playing AP Kai'Sa, and we saw them landing like so many Prey Seekers, like you're probably getting closer to 45% of your team's damage. And then maybe you're sharing with someone like Doinby. We didn't actually see, I think, the top side of NiP really have too much say of this game, and I think that has been true of NiP so far in 2025. I think that this core has really been ran with Doinby at the helm, and then you have, you know, AD carry Leave and PP God and Aki as like followers to the charge.
Yeah, and in terms of some of the other players on NiP, I will say I think Shanji on the Mbessa did a really good job buying a lot of space for the carries to do some work. And
Shanji might need to be investigated for some of this Mbessa game, however. There were some questionable moments for himself.
I think, though, a lot of that was kind of on RNG as well for making a solid play. I'm thinking about that Otacon play where they just decided to collapse onto him. And I think other teams might have just gone for the Otacon fight and avoided going for the Mbessa and then would have gotten flanked on and maybe all killed. But it's good decision-making from RNG, specifically on that play, although we need to see that more later on. There's the damage charts. Yeah, it's about 1,200 DPM here for Leave.
Dude, our junglers did almost as much damage as our supports.
Yeah, Milky Way not the strongest game overall. We didn't get too much use of that paranoia.
I mean, look at our Rumble,
levels
man.
down as well.
My Rumble was playing vegan Rumble. This guy was eating salads top lane for 45 minutes. Let's see the damage share here for, oh my god, 43%. Kai'Sa's OP, guys. Looks good.
Yeah. We're in Fearless, so Leave's not going to be able to get that again.
True.
However, it was a great answer into the composition that RNG had. It both is able to follow up on some of the pick potential that NiP have in their kit, and also is able to provide a lot of poke to try to burst down some members of RNG, you know, in some of these later game team fights. This is a play that I think really shifted things towards NiP as we get a look at some highlights. Leave being able to survive here and also getting 2 kills on the back end. It seemed like every time a player on NiP was targeted, the rest of the team was always there to try and punish.
You know what's also, I think, kind of going to be fun to watch? We teased it just a little bit for our head-to-head. Tangyuen's improvement so far. I think that he played this game really, really valiantly. I want to see what that looks like, especially because Doinby, I think his precision has just been a little bit low. This was the fight that I think individually I was really impressed, and it's plays like these that got RNG a couple of kind of miracle wins, I think, in the FPX series especially. That series ended up going the distance and potentially could have gone a different way. I think we could have seen FPX finding a win in that series if it wasn't for a player like Tangyuan on his Yone especially. So if he can keep this level of performance, there has to be a game in here from NiP where they troll just a little too much. They take a random mid-game team fight, Aki gets caught out, Leave does another performance in the first 10 minutes of this game. Something has to give, I think, for RNG. They just need to be able to hit the bar, I think.
Yeah, it seemed like the cards were on the table for RNG to take that game as well. Just not enough to stop Leave, who just continued to pile up the kills. Some really nice individual plays from, I think, Jachi and Milky Way. You know, in some instances, like this was a really nice attempt to try to get away. But just not enough in terms of forcing different plays. And you know, Jachi, I think though played a really good game. There is opportunities for RNG to win against NiP, I think.
Yeah. On one hand, right, like we want them to engage, but then you watch the game and they're not in position for fights early enough. When Niket is in a flank, he gets spotted either by Vision or Luden's companion for some reason, and then you can't ever, it's a damned if you do, because by the time he walks up, he's already 10% HP because Kai'Sa's an OP champion and passive just destroys his face. So like, I feel bad for Niket and for RNG, but that is just a matter of setting up and making sure that you are getting to fights early and making sure that the right players are in the right spot, right? We wanted to see Xiaoshu move over, but he had to catch waves. But he was unwilling to drop a minion wave to teleport to the play. So that means that they had to give up an early dragon. They had to give up some herald. All these things start to compound and end up in where we come into a game 25 minutes in and we're like, well, RNG can't actually ever walk into an objective because they just are outranged for the rest of the game.
It's tough. It's tough, especially because of the indecision that RNG had towards the start of the game. If they hit that 1 to 2 item power spikes early on and they went for objective fights, I feel like they would have been in a much better spot. But instead, opting to go for things like turret trades and things like that, some more decisiveness, like we saw from their new addition to Ket, who I think also played himself a very good game, will be good here for RNG if they want to try to even this series up. Make it a competitive one. I will say right now as well, NiP have locked themselves at least a spot in the quarterfinals with this win due to game differential, as the player of the game most obviously is Leaf.
Yeah, it's a double elim bracket, so, and if you're in the second seed, you're going to be playing before any of the first seed teams, so yeah, it's, at least with this win, like you were saying, NiP, they will make it to top 8, which is an accomplishment for this roster, but now with the addition of Doinb, I think that they should be looking for a little bit higher aspirations.
Absolutely. They win this series, they'll block the #1 seed. But they at least have one part of that done. But as Kobe Bryant once said, the job is not finished. We got Game 2 drafts coming up in just a second. But before we do so, we want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to all of our supporters on Coffee who we're extremely grateful for our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up our show. A lot of the initial payments that you guys have been able to contribute so far have gone into upgrading the broadcast, but also a huge bulk of it will go on to pay on-air talent and content creators. You can subscribe to our Coffee, which is linked in the chat, to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions like we saw with Doinb for our unique on-site interviews. NiP take Game 1. We'll see if RNG can bounce back after this. Welcome back, everybody, to LPL English. Ninjas in Pajamas taking a 1-0 series lead over RNG as they have locked themselves a spot in the LPL Split 1 quarterfinals. We'll see if RNG has anything to say about it as they are now on the back foot but still have some opportunities to progress. My name is Graves, joined alongside Alk Battery here for game number 2. We got a long extended first matchup here, Alk, but especially towards the back of that half of that game, NiP seemed very in control. Especially off of the back of Leaves Kaisa.
Leaves Kaisa was just too OP, and there's reason why I love this guy. He has been, I think, an AD carry that, despite mired in controversy, he has always, I think, been able to play the game at a pretty decent level. Obviously, he's been playing here in the LPL for a bit, but now he has a team that I think matches some of the firepower that he's been able to show glimpses of on RNG and EG. So I'm looking forward to what we get from Lee for this year. If this is, I think, the bar he's setting for us, both like with this game and I think the past couple of matches that we've gotten so far in 2025.
Yeah. And for RNG, in terms of their qualification stakes, as we still have 2 more games in this Group D left to play, there is a world where I think they can potentially make it out if FPX do take down Invictus Gaming later on this week. However, their path remains narrow, and it starts with them, I think, winning this at least a couple of games here in this best of 5, even if they do end up going down at the end of the day.
Yeah, NiP winning simply just locks up one of the playoff spots. If NiP loses today, and so we see RNG take the victory, any combination of RNG, NiP, and IG could be top 2 from Group D, which is, I think, why from Demacia Cup, when we did the group draws originally, this was the group of life. Even with, we were saying, like, oh, with Nenny in mid instead of Doinb, really anybody could get out in second. Then we started off the group, Doinb joins, Doinb and the squad find an upset versus IG. So now really anybody can get out. And for anybody at home, the way that tiebreakers work is it's game score. So obviously NiP are 2-0. If they win, they're 3-0. They go first. Then it goes to game differential, then head-to-head. Usually it's head-to-head, especially for some of our Western tournaments, but game differential being a very big one. IG and RNG have the exact same score. They're 4-4 right now. So any small win or any small variation between this series and one of the last series of the split in group stages could mean that our RNG are no longer able to make playoffs.
Yeah, so essentially, if RNG lose, their only angle in is to... It's some weird situation where they gotta hope that IG loses worse.
Generational downfall if they lose to FPX.
I mean, yeah, the loss to NiP maybe was a little bit unexpected, but if this IG roster loses to Fun Plus Phoenix, that would be definitely rather surprising. However, they did not look on their A game early on in the season, so... Still some questions to be answered. RNG want to try to avoid all of them and just win the series outright, but it's going to have to start with a better situation here in game number 2. They won the 1v1, so they've been on blue side 2 games in a row here, Alk.
Yep.
What kind of adjustments do you want to see in the draft overall? Obviously, because it is Fearless, none of the 10 champions will be available once again, but did you like the style that they brought to the table, or do you want to see something a little bit different?
I want to look at the top lane pool because the Cassante was so important for me. Shanji has been kind of a Cassante merchant for the past couple of years since this champion has been out, like most top laners, but now with Rumble gone as well, I think his champion pool starts to get a little bit pinched, and I think we saw some of that effect with the Ambessa. RNG now going for the Yone first pick. This is most likely going over to Tongyuan, and does allow them to play some more of those mage jungles, which we've been seeing, I think, pop up, especially here in this group.
Response will be the Leona here for PP God. Played the Rakan admirably. Nothing too special, I would say, in game number 1. Who was special, though, was Leave, who whips out the Misfortune, another champion he has had good success on early on in the season. The response here for RNG, they're going to match the physical damage of the Yone with the magic damage of a Zyra in the jungle, and then Niket will be locking in the Nautilus.
It's so dangerous to walk into an objective, and I think this is going to be a hard game to play Misfortune if this Yone is anywhere being relevant. So, going to be looking for how PP God is able to control the map. Aki going for the Nidalee. I'll be honest, Grapes, last time we saw Aki on this champion, it was tough. It was a tough watch. So...
Somewhere on this planet, Rafa is celebrating and Italy getting locked in.
I don't think he's going to be celebrating watching this game. I'll be honest, guys. I just want everyone to be prepped. The Nidalee did not look great, and so we'll see what other kind of marksman this allows for NiP to go for, and Nidalee definitely a champion that does give them some poke, but can play a supportive role as we get into the back end of these drafts. Renekton taken away for Shanji, as well as this Udyr. The Udyr, I think, is so important just because of the flex between our two top laners.
Yeah, NiP definitely want a little bit more frontline, probably for Shanji, or Doinby could play something in a little bit tankier as well. While on the other side for RNG, probably just a little bit more DPS, which is why you see something like that Ezreal being banned away from Jachi. We'll see who they want to give this last pick to. Either Shanji or Doinby will be able to get that counter. I'd imagine you pick mid here, knowing you have the Yone matchup. The Renekton a good takeaway to prevent a Renekton mid, but instead it'll be a Gragas locked in.
Can also be a flex. Doinby is one of the few Gragas mid enjoyers alongside fellow brethren across the pond, Niski. But RNG, what are the options here? I think an aggressive AD carry option is fine if you want to try to go for the 2v2, but Varus and Ashe have kind of dropped off the face of the planet. So interested to see what the option here for RNG. Ashe would definitely help more of the supportive style and being able to affect NiP, but Jhin adds, I think, a lot of utility, especially with the long-range poke. So RNG really want to focus on making sure that they're able to control space with Jhin traps and with the Zyra, and then have a really hefty all-in with our solo laners.
Yeah, because we did see them struggle with that a little bit in game number 1 in terms of, you know, playing around the objectives, controlling neutral ground in a way, as that is a blind Camille potentially set up here for Xiaoshu. I'd imagine the Gragas doesn't do too well into that, so maybe Doinby ends up picking this up, and we'll see what NiP want to do to round out the composition. It's going to be a Pantheon here, and that leaves a very skirmish-heavy early game composition for Ninjas in Pajamas. We'll see where these guys end up going. It looks like Doinby might be the one piloting the Panth.
Okay, we're getting melee mids. Look, again, leaning into some of the flexibility of a player like Doinby is so incredible for a system where we have Fearless. I think one of the first interviews that Doinby gave out for the year was like, "Thank you, Riot, for introducing Fearless and giving me a job." Like, he knows how much value he can provide, and Pantheon makes the 2v2 very, very deadly all of a sudden. And I think it's difficult for Yone to actually find the kill in the solo lane, and if we get to side lanes, suddenly there's a Pantheon who can play around the map. That is one of the strengths of this player in Doinby.
And so we thought, I think, on this 1-2 here, Alk, that NiP wanted to play more of a team fight game with things like the Misfortune and the Leona. That's a very strong team fighting bot lane, but looks like they opted more for some skirmishing on that top side. I feel like early on, especially like once Doinby hits level 6, can roam around the map here with Aki, I expect NiP to be active across the map relatively early on.
While it will be easier for a player like Tangyuan on this Yone to clear out mid-wave than Doinby, I think that the 1v1 is really difficult to play, and then the 2v2 especially, with having Nidalee alongside it to set up. This is as close to getting Renekton as we're allowed to have, considering he was banned in this game. So I want to see what NiP are able to do with this mid 2v2, especially with some question marks as to whether or not Aki's Nidalee is going to be as effective. And this Gragas does really well into the Camille, especially early on. So I think RNG have a tough uphill battle to climb if they want to get out of the lanes and empower this Zyra.
As we head onto the Rift for game number 2, RNG whipping out some old classics, things like the Kangyeon Yone that did so well for them earlier on in the season to try to even up this series at 1-1. They know that if they drop this one to NiP, their chances of making it into the playoff bracket drop dramatically, and they're going to have to really improve on their performance in game number 1 if they want to have a chance keeping this one close.
All right, they're trying to find early invades. We're going to be walking in. Everybody will be spotted here. So Jiachi also took a recall, so he'll get spotted. I think we should be seeing NiP looking for something here, but not able to land too much poke, and they get control of the top side of the jungle.
And I remember last game, it was Milky Way who initiated kind of a vertical jungle situation by stealing away the red side blue buff first off. Looks like this time NiP want to get into the blue side jungle of RNG this time around, as Aki is going to be there first. And we might be seeing some sort of modified lane swap situation now, especially with now Leave and PP God still trying to bully out Xiaoshu and forcing Tangyuan to actually maybe miss out on some of this early farm.
He'll be at least in range. Ooh, also started the W to make sure that he grabs it, but especially in a lane swap, if there's nothing you can do in the solo lane, just walk mid, help your mid laner get push, help your mid laner, at least for the early levels especially. Again, we were talking about the fact that Yone versus Pantheon. It's not the most fun matchup. Pantheon is typically very, very good at being able to deal with squishier melee champions, and so they're just going to split the map. They stopped they stopped Milky Way from being able to set up too much with the Zyra, and hopefully that delays them as we got a fight in mid lane. Tangyuan hit 2 first.
Thrown out there from Doinby. Tangyuan unfazed by it. I will say he went E level 2, so he still does not have that Q.
Yeah.
Which could be interesting here. Now RNG.
They're going to go for this dive on a Shanji.
Going to try to dive Shanji here. Jiaozu did start the hook shot, so should be able to find a good engage to start things off, but instead the wave not in the best place for it, so RNG will have to wait for a little bit as the lane might start to reset a little bit with Leave and PP God headed right down towards bot.
And this is going to be a small advantage here for Xiaoshu, who was able to get level 2 first, will grab all of this top lane wave, and immediately NiP have already swapped their bottom lane back into this role. So interesting stuff coming in from NiP. They don't lose too much on the crash, as we saw that Shanji gave up part of the wave, wasn't able to actually contest. He's not actually using the teleport either, so he's saving the summoner spell.
So now Milky Way looking for a gank. PP got forced to flash away. Aki in the area to try and make sure that PP God will be able to escape. And the red buff actually doing maybe some body blocking here for Milky Way. Tangyuan now has to flash away. Zenith Blade connects onto Milky Way, who all of a sudden is potentially targeted here. That is going to be Doinby flashing on top of him. That's first blood picked up for NiP. The skirmishing early on is working very well for the red side, as now Aki will get his reign on the enemy red buff as well.
RNG just felt confused in that play. They tried to cover for Tangyuan. He ends up making the catch. And now NiP find themselves with first blood. They get access to the respawn raptors here for Aki. I mean, this Zyra couldn't be in a possibly worse spot right now. Got contested early on. They couldn't make the bot lane dive happen. And now Aki has access. He can go topside, finish off the scuttle. Maybe with Xiaoshu getting early priority, it's a bit tougher here. And Doinby especially not able to really get pushed too much in mid. You see Milky Way, he's not even bothering to go towards the top side of the map. He just wants to be bottom lane, get his raptors, and maybe even look for something for onto this misfortune.
So you say early on, Aki in Italy doing a little bit better than last time.
For now, but I don't think this is because he is mechanically outplaying. He is not mechanically outplaying anybody. He just landed Q onto a target that was fully stunned by Leona. That doesn't count.
Hey, to be fair, that is you gotta be aggressive early on this Nidalee pick, especially if you're going to be heavily counter jungling here. There's some more trading down here in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, up on the top side, Xiaoshu and Shanji duking it out a little bit. Xiaoshu, with that early XP advantage, really seems to have been able to take control of this top side, as things have slowed down a little bit across the rift after that chaotic start.
So I need to know, what is Shanji's idea here? Why did we save the teleport for this play? Was he maybe worried of a bottom lane dive? That could be the case, but because of it, he's trapped in lane. He didn't get to use early teleport, which, especially for the lane, you want to at least use it once before the Unleashed teleport comes through. And he's just kind of stuck right now, because all Xiaoshu needs to be able to do is come back. He'll still keep some of his experience lead that he has over his opponent, and that does mean he'll have access to level 6 before this Gragas, which, hey, we've got grub spawning in 30 seconds. If that's a play that NiP are looking to contest, then it becomes much bigger of an issue for them.
And so Shanji actually using the teleport to go to the bottom lane, clear that wave out, as the bot lane for NiP will rotate towards the top side to try and take control of these grubs. Xiaoshu, on the other hand, deciding to stay up here towards the top side. Not level 6 just yet, and that wave's not in a great position. We'll see if he ends up getting it before that objective spawns, but RNG don't seem very worried about it. Instead, maybe looking for a gank here down bot.
I think this is a fascinating choice coming in from RNG, not committing for the topside play. I'll hold that as Shanji.
And it's send Niket down here as well. Dredgeline does not connect. Nice dodge from Shanji, and that will buy enough time for NiP to pick up the grubs.
I figured that RNG would be a team that wanted to focus on early grubs, just because you have this Yone, you have this Camille who can be very potent side push or side lane threats. So letting them being able to get alone time on a turret or be a little bit more potent that you could force NiP to match was something that I was thinking was going to occur. But without them finding the kill bottom lane, they don't even bother to go for the dragon, recognizing that there's a dive that's going to be happening onto top lane. Xiaoshu gives up the wave, did hit level 6, but I mean, I think the reinforcements are just too late. Doinby's going to be here. Tungwin eventually will be able to make his way over.
It's all 4. It's only 4 here right now, though. Here comes
Oh,
the ultimatum.
Aki!
It lands here onto Aki, as he will get hooked up here by NiKet as well. Is there enough damage? The Riptide comes through. Aki should be able to escape, but the last tick of the Ignite will take him down. The full bullet time lands onto NiKet, as he'll get traded 1 for 1, but RNG get NiP's jungler and shut the Nidalee down.
But still, look at who's the big loser in this play. Xiaoshu gets none of this top wave, still cut off from the rest of this lane. He's not able to get any experience or any of the gold. Will eventually be able to trickle back in here, but that was also 2 plates going over to NiP. I don't think they were in range for one of them, but either way, I still think a big find for the Ninjas in Pajamas. As we get back into this replay, I mean, Aki just unfortunately, you got outplayed by Hextech Ultimatum. Happens to the best of us. I'm not going to blame it this time on his Nidalee. You got to pass for this invade.
Hey, if you're, yeah, I mean, for RNG, they were pressured away from their tower. They couldn't fight there, so instead, trying to find a bit of a straggler, and that was what Aki was, as he looked for a aggressive steal of the second spawn of the blue buff. I'll say just that. And right now, RNG getting a little bit of life back, but still gold in control for NiP. They're still up about 1,000. They have control of those first spawn of grubs, and they still did not take away that dragon. They sent a lot of resources down towards the bottom side.
Walk this guy, walk this
flashing
guy.
forward for shot, will connect as Shanji just goes a little bit too far, and RNG's bot laner getting on the board here.
But Jin's not going to be out here on the map, so I think NiP are going to be looking to grab this dragon while RNG just try to get as much damage onto this top tier 1. They've had to send Doinby over. Doinby, I thought he was going to commit the ultimate, but he's probably going to be saving that to look for a bottom lane play. It was great for RNG to find that, but I think that the cost might be a little too much. The next 3.5 minutes, you're going to be playing Jin with no flash versus a Pantheon, Leona, and a Gragas. If you are NiP, I think you take that trade any day of the week.
Get another look here.
So what happened here?
Shanji's very aggressively posturing, and he just takes a little bit too much damage, I think, on the back end.
Okay. Okay. So we got Jin ulted. Okay. He just lets it happen. I don't know what to say, Grapes. Like,
yeah, he's saving his flash for next game, seemingly as well. I don't know.
I get it, man. He wants to flash belly slam into someone. I get it, but like, you can't be dying on side lanes, and I think that has been part of some of the criticism that we've levied towards Shanji, not only in just this series, but I think his last 1.5 years, especially coming off of that OMG run with Cream and the rest of the gang. His side laning and some of his team fighting hasn't been up to snuff. And
oh man, look at the bullet time damage. RNG's Milky Way almost taken down to 0 from full HP there. You know, Leaf had a great game 1. I think he's gonna have a pretty good game 2.
Yeah, but look on the other side. I feel bad. Like, Leaf almost kills the enemy enemy jungler, but look at what he's able to buy on the opposite side. Aki on the top side takes all of his camps. Can play for these grubs as well. NiP are in such a strong position here, Grapes, and it's small moments of hope here for RNG that have looked great, but other than that, hasn't been. I mean, is this real?
They're going for the plan. PP got down to 200 HP, but here comes Doinby with the Grand Starfall. PP got at 100 HP. Jachi just trying to throw out the the curtain call, but Lee flashes in front of that first shot and will be able to pick up the kill. That is kill number 3, and that first feat of strength going to NiP.
Okay, both AD carries, I think that's a handshake like, all right, respect, bro. Like, goes for it. Instant cleanse coming in from Jachi. Again, not having flash from that previous play means that he is more susceptible to these Leona ults. And we got to see Doinby lose out on a wave on mid, but makes the play happen in bottom side. But think about the investment as well. PP got no flash, Leave no flash, so I'll be looking to see if RNG are able to actually punish that, or if that's going to be a summoner spell that goes unchecked.
Seems like right now NiP are everywhere on the map before RNG are. Like, it doesn't matter where it is. It seems like they're top lane and bot lane at the same time. You see right there that Milky Way is able to steal away 1 of the grubs before Aki took the rest. So big control in that grub department. Really nice explosive cast from Shanji, who is going to try to make up for his sins of that solo kill earlier. Doinby with the Comet Spear picks up kill number 2.
All right, guys. So we picked the Camille into the Camille blind. We got owned. Happens. We knew that the Gragas was there. It was going to be a flex, but not a matchup that we were kind of comfortable with.
North lands the knockup onto 2. Bullet time does come out though and forces RNG to escape. Leave using these ultimates beautifully here in this second game. And RNG seem like they're trying to go for plays, but really aren't able to capitalize too much on anything so far.
Well, with 5 grubs and with where Pantheon in this game does not get much easier for RNG. Those grubs are going to do so much damage, and they even have a demolish on what I'm expecting is going to be Leona, so they immediately get 2 turret plates before 14 minutes here in the mid lane, maybe even a third with the dot damage that this does. Yep. Yeah, a lot of gold here for NiP as we get a look at this again. I mean, it was Niket trying to find something. PP God was pretty low, and I just want everyone to respect, like, instantaneous cleanse from Jachi, literally without missing a beat, uses the curtain call, and it's a flash from Leave. I loved watching the player cams after this because both Jachi and Leave were like smiling, laughing. It was they recognized that both of them had made a great play here.
And then there's this fight down here where again PP God seemingly gets caught out, but just it's too tanky and the rest of his team does too much damage for RNG to finish him off.
I mean, his AD carry just does no damage right now. It's going to be a we're looking at Static Shiv Jin, Mosquito Jin has returned back to League of Legends, and yeah, his Zyra also just hasn't finished an item. We're 13 minutes in, and Milky Way is just now finishing Liliandry's. NiP are already way ahead of the ball, and when you have 2 AP junglers, it's very easy to track who's so far ahead. Aki's almost level 10 at this point, and part of that is having to do with some of his winning lanes, but he's also, I think, done a really good job of drawing away resources from this from Milky Way.
Oh, definitely. I mean, didn't he? He took away both of the first spawns of Red and Blue buff, and then has been able to capitalize on the counter jungling ever since then. So right now, Aki in a great spot. He's definitely been outplaying Milky Way so far early in this series, and that was a player that we were excited to watch here for RNG. Now we head down to the bottom lane with the dragon spawning in just 15 seconds. Solar Flare comes out, lands on a Tangyeon, but he's able to buffer nicely with the Fate Sealed. Really nice Stranglethorn to try to buy some time, and PP God goes too far forward, and RNG get 1 kill on the overextension.
Those are my ninjas in pajamas. There's the classical random mid bot lane death coming in. PP God in the squad. Oh. Sorry, guys. You just stayed a little too far up and find Niket.
Gonna cancel a little bit of damage, but will go down rather easily. Now Doinby stuck in a bit of a weird spot here. We'll try to flash onto Milky Way. Here comes the curtain call, though. 1 shot doesn't land. The 2nd shot will, though. On to Doinby and take him down. Teleport comes in from Jiaoshu. Now Aki could be the one in trouble. The sweep lands here onto the middle lane, and the Deadly Flourish does as well. Jiaoshu finally using that Hextech ultimatum to take Aki down, and RNG get a boatload of kills in the bottom lane.
Shanji this whole time sat in mid. He was able to transfer over, hit that mid tier 1, and it's a couple of kills. I don't know if RNG can start this dragon up, however. I mean, Doinby's going to be back up in a second here. He doesn't have the ultimate. No one's able to contest from Ninjas in Pajamas. It'll just be their first dragon of the game at 15 minutes.
So we thought this was very, very NiP favored, and to be fair, it still is. The gold lead's still about 2,000, but these are the mistakes, Alk, that we definitely need to see this team clean up a little bit before they head into the knockout stage.
Yeah. Small mechanical things, right? Like the fact that Tangyuan's able to cancel or ignore part of the ultimate from Leona is great from RNG, and I mean, they were just like, hey, we have Pantheon ult. If they stay under this turret, we're probably going to dive them anyway.
This was blind, by the way.
This was literally just like, hey, I'm just sending it, and if this guy's in this bush, then great. But I think you look at what they're actually able to gain from this, and NiP lose a lot more from this trade than maybe they would have wanted. As we come back to live.
PP God going so aggressive throughout the entirety of this game. Jachi kind of on the other side of the fight right now. Milky Way getting bursted down by the bullet time, but not able to be taken down all the way to 0. Comet Spear just short from hitting on to the Zyra. And so there's no bloodshed, but another aggressive play will result in more camps going Aki's way. Really been taking advantage of the counter jungling here on this middle lane.
Milky Way is just not allowed to touch any of his camps, and that already sucks for most junglers. when you're the farm-heavy jungle that usually requires resources, you want to be able to get gold into your back pocket. This is just not the way for you right now, and RNG are hurting. Really, the only people that have been able to stabilize themselves are this bottom lane. Jiachi and Tang Yuan have been doing pretty fine for themselves, and I think that they are still showing that there is some ability for them to team fight, but NiP are putting a large focus playing with Aki and I think leveraging their advantage. As, I mean, this right here, I wish it was just slightly more coordinated, right? Like, if we got the ultimate onto Milky Way, if Doinby had landed the stun and as he's going for it, then we get the misfortune ult. Milky Way dies there, but that's twice now that the Zyra's been able to walk away.
It's almost like a death in its own right in terms of forcing Milky Way back to base at the very least.
All right.
Speaking of things that are burned, that's Jiachi's cleanse out of the picture. Not major objectives to fight over for a little bit, but certainly going to be happy about getting that Jhin Summoner spell. Otacon spawning towards the bot side, so we'll have both the Dragon and the Otacon spawning in just over 2.5 minutes.
I feel right now, Grapes, as we're waiting for Dragon. Oh, wait a minute, we got a team fight.
Yeah, there's a fight as PPGod just refuses to back away any single time. The burn from the Leandries will finally take him down, but Doinby coming in with the Grand Starfall. Comet Spear doing a lot of damage. Finally, Milky Way will drop, and that is Aki picking up Niket as well. It's a 2-for-1 extended trade. Tang Yuan forced to go back as well, as NiP retaining their control of this bottom side jungle.
RNG thought they found the pick onto PPGod, and hey, you got the Leona down, but look at what you lose in trade. It's going to be a bot tier 1, a mid tier 2, so 2 turrets falling here. And Doinby on this Pantheon is just providing so much utility. He can be in anywhere on the map. I was going to say we have like a certain moment of like happiness and extreme sorrow because I get to finally see someone play with the synchronized souls, and especially now with feats of strength enabled, they get even more movement speed, but it's Fimbulwinter's second item.
Yeah.
This expresses extreme sorrow in my heart for this item, as not really what I wanted to see. And I mean, PPGod just gets caught, dies to Leandri's burn here, and that Pantheon ultimate is just so useful, being able to get across the map incredibly easy.
Milky Way is dead.
And Milky Way, we come back to live, and he is dead. He has never been so strong on the AP junglers. I think that this was a matchup where we were looking at both him and Aki, both on champions or playstyles that we're not super familiar with them. And some of that is starting to show just a little bit here.
Yeah, he's not really been able to farm basically the whole game. You can see right now Aki 50 CS ahead of Milky Way, as well as 2 levels. We'll have to look at the replay in the pit, but it just...
He just walked into his jungle. You made the cardinal sin of his enemy jungle.
How dare you walk into the enemy jungle?
How dare you walk into your raptor, into
jungle,
your wolves, man. Come on, dude. Show some respect. RNG, they want to fight, man. They said, look, we can't keep losing, but...
Looking a little desperate right now as Niket flashes for the depth charge and still is unable to connect anything more than just the ult. Shanji will get targeted here by the ultimatum, but a really nice explosive cast will take Zhao Shu down. Going to be Tang Yuan with landing that Fate Seal, but not much more. It is 2 more kills in favor of NiP.
It's looking very doomed here for RNG. NiP almost feels like they can do no wrong. They're doing a little bit of fiesta gaming in some of these fights, but I think that they're just too far ahead at this point. Double items. You see them now that they've recalled. 2 items for Aki. 2 items here for Shanji. He's going to be finishing Fimbulwinter. Doinby's in that same camp. And I don't know, Grapes. It just feels like every single play, they're not able to get on the back line. Niket, unfortunately, is not having the same success that we saw on the Rel. And part of your game plan is to make sure that the Zyra gets to her breakpoints. And that has just not been the case here, as we are Pantheon ulting to... Okay, guys.
Cardinal
Come on.
Sin cannot let Milky Way walk into his own jungle. Once again, going to get stunned up. Bullet time is flashed away from, and now NiP use a lot of their cooldowns. It could maybe be in a bit of trouble, but the answer is actually no. Aki picking up another kill onto Niket, who's had a bit of a tougher game this time around, and it is now a 6,000 gold lead for NiP.
They get the Dragon. They'll be able to get bottom lane Otacon if they really want to. They have to kind of pick one of these objectives, but they've got Engage on wheels here, man. Like, you've got Leona, who can do anywhere within like an 11 to 1500 range, and Pantheon just says, if you're on the map, I can probably hit you this time. So, kind of sucks for RNG. There's no place that's safe, and honestly, Milky Way, he might need to adopt the buddy pass system. Like, hey, you gotta walk with me, man. Yeah, I can't do this.
Yeah, NiP might have to just be relegated to following around the jungler so we can farm some camps. Right now, not looking good for RNG, in danger of going down to 2-0 here in this best of 5. Reminder that there is still potentially a world where RNG can lose the series and make it out of the group, but it does not start with an 0-3. It makes things nearly impossible just due to game differential being the tiebreaker, even if FPX end up taking down IG.
I mean, the big part of that, right, is no longer is their fate really in their hands. They were not able to complete their part of the assignment. So
Yes.
hoping for other participation in the group project that is Group D. You got to start on this Otacon. This is pretty risky. Even with the gold advantage that NiP have, the amount of shred that Otacon gives, and I think how slow this objective is going to go down. RNG do have a timer here that they can look for. Shashu does have teleport, and he did push in this wave, but
Milky Way.
Milky Way.
Caught out once again, this time by Shanji on the body slam. Don't be flashing forward. Stranglethorns only to delay the inevitable, which has been Milky Way's death every single time these two teams have clashed here in Game 2. Xiaoxu will pick up the tier 2 as a bit of a consolation prize, but NiP are pushing down bot. They could even look for a tier 3.
RNG have been really focused on side laning and making sure that they're split mapping across their opponents, but part of the issue with going for cross map is not only do you have to have information, partially due to vision, lack of vision coming in from RNG, and I think just with where the map is, it's very much collapsed in favor of NiP, but you have to have the confidence to kind of send it. With Camille, it's very easy to get away if you get caught on a side lane, so if they had been a little bit quicker on the trigger to go for these, maybe they find Doinb.
Xiaoxu looking to try to finish things off here. There's the Hextech ultimatum.
Oh,
Fate Seal does not
no!
connect. Doinb surviving for so long. They will finally take him down, but at what cost? Bullet time comes out. Nikek bursts down. Tang Yuan finally bursts down the turret, but it is not a good death here for the Yone, as 3 of his teammates will fall, as well as the Otacon going NiP's way.
This is the Thanos moment, man. He's like, I got what I wanted. We were able to take down Doinb. What did it cost you? Almost everything here for RNG. They lose 3 members. They're not able to make that play. It's great you got the turret, but the game, I think, is just too much out of hand. Another blue buff stolen here by Aki. Another Wolves taken. Okay, we've got probably another 3 minutes of gameplay. You know, we have the Otacon for 2 minutes. Baron's up in a minute. We'll go into this replay, and then I'll ask you a question here, Grapes. I thought maybe they would just focus the turret. I mean, you have Demolish here for Xiaoxu, but really just wants to make sure that they find this. It just gets knocked out of it, man. Like, there's no ult from Yone. There's just no follow-up damage. And as we come out of this, do we think we're going to be getting Flame Horizon in the jungle here for Aki? Because Milky Way's probably going to be clearing some minion waves. Probably going to get access to maybe 1 or 2 more camps, but
I think the game's just going to end too quick. That's my take at this point.
I mean,
NiP are very far ahead. If they can use the Otacon buff to just secure this Baron, and then they probably can end on that next push, just winning a 5v5, because they are so much stronger at this point in the game. Really, you get to a point where there's just not enough jungle camps to steal away at this point as well. Like, Aki doesn't really.
We gotta start killing people, bro. We gotta start killing champions. Just start taking gold from them.
And look at the vision as well on this top side. Just so many wards. And looks like RNG really have no control. You can see they send both of their soul laners down to the bottom side to try to deal with Shanji, while on the other side, their bot lane is just getting targeted by 4 members of Ninjas in Pajamas. NiP will once again be the sacrificial Nautilus, as they do get a turret on the backside, but it might cost them their lives, as here comes the rest of NiP. Xiaoxu trying to at least just clear the wave. Bit of a bounce moment here on this bottom side, as he knows his fate is inevitable, allowing for the rest of his team to escape at the very least. Maybe getting a little bit of chip damage here onto Shanji, as Xiaoxu is continuing to run the wrong way and will eventually go down.
Look, RNG are just wasting their time right now. They haven't started up a Baron. They haven't been able to start up the Dragon or get in position really for this objective. So for the time being, it's nice for RNG. I still think this is very much an NiP-sided game here, but RNG are at least playing the map. And I will say, I think against lower-end teams, if we were looking at not necessarily an NiP here in the group, maybe you're going up against another. Chachi's mechanics are too clean this game. I feel bad for him, man.
Unfortunately, too much crowd control on the Leona. Yeah.
He literally has perfect. He has Captain Jack cleanses, and the game doesn't even matter. Oh no.
Hey, it's a good sign for maybe the rest of the series if he's able to get in a better position later.
RNG Split 2 is going to be a beast, man. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying. Regardless of if they make playoffs or not, I think that with where we expected this team to look at from Demacia Cup to now, I think this is a really fun team to watch. And I think while they won't be able to, if they do make playoffs, it'll be great. I doubt they will make a very deep run. They are showing that they are at least playing the map and trying to cross-map for objectives instead of forcing for fights and over-forcing for objectives that they just have no business of matching for. So at least RNG showing some cerebral play behind the mask.
I was on the cast for the LNG series the other day, and that was a losing team that felt like they did not know how to play the map. It seems like right now, RNG at least are making plays. They are trying their best to try to at least, you know, play sides, split the map up in different ways that potentially are to their benefit. But right now, NiP just looking like the better team. We mentioned with Doinby joining this roster that all of a sudden they are a big contender to potentially make international competitions here in the LPL, and it's looking like that is more and more of a possibility as they are looking poised to go undefeated in their group.
Which is really impressive for a squad that, honestly, we had questions for. We said this was going to be Group D, Group of Life. Anybody could have made it. We were looking at IG being the big dogs. Who knew a team with the Shy would be able to kind of squander some resources? Happens. Rookie had a bad game as well, so my GOAT not infallible, but NiP have just looked head and shoulders above.
Maybe one last going for broke play here, as that is a lot of cooldowns used to just burn a couple of flashes. Xiaoshu getting bursted down against Leave, will probably die in the 1v1 as he does, as Doinby dashes down to the back line, trying to finish off this game here for NiP. It's a two-man fate sealed here for Tong Yuan, but he will drop it regardless. It's a double kill for Leave, a two-man body slam coming in from Shanji, and a much more dominant game number 2 victory here for Ninjas in Pajamas, as they put themselves to match point and are looking to run away with first place in Group D.
Wow, 12,000 gold. We didn't get, unfortunately, the Jungle Flame Horizon, but just like you said, not enough game time and not enough camps for NiP. They got all the jungle camps, then they started taking the RNG champion camps, and then they took the Nexus camp. And unfortunately, that one is a lot more important as, like you said, looking towards an almost undefeated group stage here. It'll be one game separating them from going 9-0.
And it seems like it was, this is what it looks like when NiP play a clean early game. That didn't happen necessarily in game number 1. That allowed for RNG to gain some momentum, but this time around, things went very well from the jump. You know, they allowed for Aki to get a ton of early camps, a huge farm lead over Milky Way. I would say if I had my vote for player of the series, it would probably go towards the jungler here for Ninjas in Pajamas. Where on the other side, RNG just did not really react well to losing a lot of those early camps.
Yeah, they weren't able to move over in time, especially I think we think about the play, I think level 5 around Raptor Pit. We were seeing Aki go for the invade. They were moving in. They had found a pick onto Leona, but they were saying, okay, we're calling back. Tong Yuan actually takes a pretty greedy path back into mid. And so he forces the flash. It ends up leaving NiKet down. And so you don't allow for your support to actually make the play or move around the map when he is kind of the sacrificial lamb in a lot of these plays. So RNG, our criticism coming out of game 1 was we never really saw them go for a team fight. In game 2 here, it felt like everything really collapsed when we saw early invades and not being able to have enough pressure early game to turn our long side lanes or some of our competent split pushers into actual threats.
And for me right now, the big question mark in terms of what RNG need to, who on RNG needs to step up, goes to their jungler Milky Way. He was a star player on loan last year for the team, coming back here to RNG, really struggling, I would say here, Alk, in these first 2 games.
I'm so look, I'm just happy we got a decent Nidalee game from Aki. Okay, I was worried. We were gonna see some old school Aki Shanji shenanigans, but This game around, NiP I think felt more poised. We still got the bottom lane stuff happening. We had some early dives not go as well, but maybe it's just game one. You know, just calibrating to the stage, getting ready to kind of lock in for finding out where your opponents are.
Getting some of those jitters out of the way potentially. Going forward though, here for RNG, not a lot of good to take away from that game one. I will say I think Jachi is playing a very good series. He was one of the players that we highlighted here for this squad, but just it seems like as soon as they are met with a little bit of adversity, this team is unable to fight back necessarily, especially here in this series early on.
They get out of lane, right, and it's just like it falls apart. And even sometimes in lane, the 2v2s or the the individuals aren't able to kind of match up, as Doinby had such a big impact on side lanes. It felt like anywhere you were, if you weren't exactly timing Pantheon ult, this guy was just anywhere. He could be anywhere on the map, and there's nothing you really could do to stop him.
You gotta look at some of these replays. I will say Doinby, he was building it. He had an unending despair as well as the Fimbulwinter in his kit. So if you like tank chase, get ready for tank Pantheon. Maybe coming
this
to
is
a
an
rift
abomination.
near you. I mean, it's not a Doinby game without a random tank item in there, right? So
I agree, but like, can we please? I can't wait till we nerf tank items. It's coming on 25 S14, so fingers crossed that we can get rid of these itemization from champions that do not need to be having tank items.
Not yet, though.
I will say maybe it
boy.
feels right for Fimbulwinter, because Fimbulwinter spent a long time just being extremely useless on champions not named Gragas.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in theory, right? You use your W, you get the shield. Even you get a shield probably on ulting in as well if you can land that slow on the initial spear. There's this guy cooks. You know, there's a lot of thought process in the builds that he goes for, and even though they might not be super orthodox, looked like it went pretty well here for Doinby this game.
He talked about it in the interview with Patty that we got, right? Was when he's in solo queue, obviously he's playing a ton as a pro player, and when he sees a champion in solo queue, he's talking to a lot of some of the one tricks that are playing it, and he kind of can see the value. Especially, I think this is almost entirely augmented around the fact that we are playing Fearless, right? Like, you need to be able to have deep champion pools, unique champions as well that I can think break the mold, and I think this format is built for players exactly like, if there's ever like a poster child for Fearless, it has to be Doinby.
I'm trying to think of any other players, but yeah, in terms of champion ocean, I think
Champion
Doinby is
and
very high
role
up there.
impact, right? Because like, you can have champion diversity and be Busio and play support when you're playing like Azir in bottom lane.
Right.
That just not like real for the most part, but like mid lane, in terms of impact on the map, in terms of how many different champions you can kind of pair with jungle as well, all the flexibility that's available to him, it's just perfect.
Yeah, it's also playstyle differences as well here, and for Doinby playing a bit of a battle mage in the Aurora in game 1, then going towards kind of a tank engaged frontliner in the Pantheon in game 2. He could whip out something completely different in game 3, and I would not be surprised whatsoever. That is just the player that he is. Despite taking 2 years away from competitive, it seems like he is right back into things, has not really skipped a beat in his return to competitive play, and is looking to allow NiP to go into an undefeated 3-0 here in this group, unless RNG has something to say about it.
I forgot that they lost that one game to IG, I won't lie.
Yeah.
They can't get 9-0. I'm a big fraud. It's okay. Yay! Super carry Doinby gets MVP. Let's see if he can get it for 3 games in a row, which we haven't been able to see here in LPL so far.
I'm curious to see.
Leave got it first
in game 1.
All right, get me out. Get me out, guys.
I thought it might have gone to Aki. I think maybe he got robbed a little bit just from that early game. But shout out to Doinby. Great frontline. Great gameplay overall here in this series. NiP is just 1 game away from ending this group stage undefeated. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll see if RNG can respond, pull off the miracle, and get us into a potential 5-game situation. Welcome back, everybody, to LPL English as we continue on in our coverage of NiP versus RNG here in Group D of the LPL Split 1 group stage. NiP currently at a 2-0 record in the series, as well as a 2-0 record in the group overall, looking to push both of those to 3-0 overall, secure themselves the top spot in this group. Or on the other side, Royal Never Give Up need a reverse sweep to keep their playoff hopes alive. Alk Battery alongside Graves here for this one. It has been a tough last couple of minutes here for RNG. That last game was a rough one for them.
Yeah, it was. At least in game one, we got it to like a 40-minute game. The first 15 minutes looked good from RNG, and I think the part of why they were able to kind of keep us going for so long was their split pushing, which is something that we saw reflected even in the second game. But 5 grubs, Otacon, your jungler almost getting Flame Horizon, all of these things, plus a Doinby Pantheon, it's just too difficult to make it through. So it sucks to see, especially because there are such bright points here for RNG, especially Jachi in the bot lane.
Yeah, he's been playing really good. I mean, even in that second game, we saw some really nice plays on the Jhin. Got a solo kill early on, some impressive cleanses, things that in a vacuum are considered very nice plays for an AD carry. But in terms of who on RNG I think need to step up, eyes turn to Milky Way. Absolutely. I feel like Aki has gotten the better hand of him in both of these last couple of games. We'll say on the Zyra, not necessarily his most comfortable style of champion. Maybe something with a little bit more agency, something that can make more plays for Milky Way could help RNG, especially in the early parts of game number 3.
And for both of these teams, this will be their last game of this group stage. For NiP, regardless of the result, they should be looking at making top 2 in the group either way, so they'll be able to kind of take that series there. And especially going towards playoffs, I think that we're looking, I know we talked about some of the stakes before, but getting first in the group is so important because it's a double elim bracket. If you're second in a group, you are you don't have that second life. Every game is an elimination from that point on.
Yeah, so in a way, a loss here could be like losing in the upper bracket, theoretically, if you think about it in the long run here for NiP. So they want to make sure that doesn't happen. They want to secure that first seed and join, the likes of the BLGs of the world potentially, depending on how that result goes tomorrow. As we are awaiting the Game 3 draft, I imagine that RNG opted once again towards the blue side because they, of course, had side selection once more. Now the question is, what do they do this time around? I think getting Milky Way on more of a playmaker is certainly top of mind here, but it looks like actually they're going to opt towards the red side, try to swap things up a little bit.
Ooh, RNG have taken this gambit before. They did it actually in the I think the FPX series. They decided, like, they lost game 1, so they went back onto, they kind of like swapped up the side selection. It was their IG series. It was game 2. Anyway, we've got a draft here. I think the Kindred band for NiP, they know. I was wondering whether or not we were going to get that from Milky Way. Give them one game at least, but they don't want to take any chances. They want to close this out on a 9-1 record.
Still definitely a lot of good options here for Milky Way, as it seems like so far in this series, being on red side means that you have to ban away the Skarner and the Cassante, so a little bit less flexibility here for RNG. But maybe they want somebody like Tongyuan on a better matchup. It's going to be Aki on the Viego to start things off, though, for NiP.
Big priority with Varus still up. I figured that was going to be the case. RNG, I think you need to be looking towards your bottom lane. I want to really... Oh, you're right, Varus is banned. I want to see a prioritization towards Jachi, make sure that we're getting him a comfortable matchup, and the Aphelios, one of his most played, so I think we're getting a lot of comfort champions across the board. Jax for Xiaoshu, one of his most played. Shanji's Viego is definitely very potent.
It seems like comfort for our RNG in what could be their last game of their first split. Try to make sure that they're all on something that they know how to play, that they are very good at. Jachi whipped this Aphelios out earlier in the group stage against FPX and came away with a win. Speaking of comfort, though, that's Shanji on the Udyr and then Doinby on his signature rise. We saw him with some pretty good plays on it last time around, and we'll see what he looks like this time.
RNG need to get some tank busters now, because you think about how resilient NiP are going to be. You think of this Rise, you have access to Tier, the Frozen Heart. If he has access to things like Rod of Ages, he's going to have so much HP. Udyr's also going to be very, very difficult to deal with. So if you're not able to get this Aphelios to be a 1v9 machine, then what I need to see from RNG is going to be a lot more tanks, because even as the game goes on, Jax can skirmish with this Udyr. It's just going to be a bit difficult, especially with how annoying Udyr can be. Udyr can just walk up, clear the wave, and run away from this Jax.
Need some AP threat as well. I think maybe something like a, hate to go back to the AP junglers here for Milky Way, but something like a Lilia could do a good job here, I think, in this matchup as we head into the second phase of bans. Galio taken away here from Tangyuan, as looks like they are worried about maybe some of the beefier presences that can come on RNG side.
Trying to think of 80 mids that Tangyuan would want to play. He played the Corki in game 1. We still have Tristana and some of the marksmen, but that has been, I think, falling to the wayside. Maybe this is Tangyuan's Smolder game, right? Like, he already played it once, and we saw it banned earlier in game 2. I think that if you're going to be trying to match scaling for scaling, you have to be willing to look for some of these. And while I like the shout from NiP, I think you might have to just be worried about what Milky Way is going to get done here in this game.
I'd imagine at this point a mid lane pickup here for Tangyuan makes sense, unless they decide to flex some things around or get creative here. That's the Mundo Hover. Don't know if that's actually going to get locked in. Nope, it looks like going to be opting for Tangyuan Azir to go up against the Doinb Rise. That is a lot of damage, and will give Milky Way last pick on R5.
Okay. What is the pick here for NiP? When we look at what Leave has been playing, we already have the Misfortune and the Kaisa games out of the way. Has opted for the Jhin, but is another champion that is gone thanks to our Fearless system. We're getting the Ezreal Karma. Really dangerous 2v2 to play for Aphelios and Thresh. Thresh not a champion that has a lot of resistances early, and while Thresh does provide some of those ability to kind of stop someone like Shanji or Aki getting onto your backline, this NiP comp can play at a pretty decent range, and they have just enough frontline that I don't know if RNG can really bust through that. They have this Azir and this Aphelios. We'll see what they'll be able to get done here in this game as RNG are facing down elimination.
It's going to be the Sejuani coming through here for Milky Way, so more tankiness on this side. Front to back here for RNG does look very solid. You have two very great backline carries with the Aphelios and the Azir. Also, though, the presence of the ability to side lane here with Xiaoshu on this Jax. On the other side for NiP, the one worry I have for them, not a ton of primary engage. You're looking a lot at RNG trying to force plays themselves, and then you as NiP looking to, find a disengage or a counter response to that.
NiP are really strong on 2 items, and while RNG have individual spikes on 1 and 2, I think we're really looking at this team being able to hit that 3-item core. If you can make it to that point in the game around 30 minutes, then maybe we can start to see this team rock up. I'm just worried about playing an early game versus NiP. Obviously, they haven't been bulletproof, but we haven't seen RNG be able to kind of stick the landing in the 10 to 15 minute mark of the game. So it's a bit worrisome, especially with in-game trends. I don't know if they'll be able to make the bounce back between 2 pretty disappointing losses here.
Definitely not ideal for RNG, as they would need to pull off a reverse sweep in order to keep their playoff hopes alive, and even then, things remain rather difficult for them, all things considered. They would need to get, I think, a little bit of help in terms of the game differential for IG in their matchup later this week, but it all starts here. They control a little bit of their own destiny. They just need to continue to win these games to have any sort of chance, as we are getting ready to enter the Rift for Game 3.
Tough spot. RNG, like we've been saying throughout the show, still can make playoffs. Destiny would just simply be out of their hands. Would be up to FPX to take a massive upset against IG later on this week, as we see these 2 teams take to the Rift. Jachi, throw up the emote. You already know you're not allowed to walk on that brush. Don't think we're going to be seeing too many early summoner spells, and kind of a soft engage here, as I was going to say maybe we're going to see the Ignite coming out from our bottom lanes, but this is a pretty big differential in my opinion. Cleanse and Heal for Leave and PP God, Ghost and Ignite for Jachi and Niket. even canceling the recall there. I think if they ever get into a 2v2 situation, I think I really would prefer Leave and PP God.
Especially with that cleanse to get away from something like the death sentence or even you know, a stun coming through from Milky Way if he decides to make his way down here as well. A lot of safety overall here for NiP. I think is the name of the game. You know, even though RNG have good engaged threats like the Sejuani, the Thresh, and the Azir, it seems like NiP's peel is going to be really, really good. They're going to be able and willing to play these fights very slow, poke out some of your opponents with this Ezreal Karma lane, and just strike when the opportunity is right. We're going to get a lane swap, actually. It's RNG initiating this one with Xiaoshu starting on the bottom side. So they even are worried about, you know, Niket and Jachi in this 2v2.
And that's kind of just how it's going to be, unfortunately. They wanted to avoid the 2v2 matchup, and I will say, Udyr is one of the most resilient in lane swap. He's obviously have gotten some changes since last year, but this was one of the original lane swap champions, right? When it was Cassante, Udyr every single game. These were the champions you kind of relied on to be solid enough laners that couldn't be found in a 2v2. Thresh and Aphelios can have some early damage. My worry is that there is an angle if there's a bad trade or if Shanji's able to kind of get onto his opponent, that you can take a pretty decent trade up against Aphelios if he's by himself. So Niket's not going to have as much time to play as making a play on the mid. There's already 4 people mid, man.
Aki very quickly level 3 and headed towards the mid lane. Milky Way joining as well. Niket's going to be the first other player here as he lands the flash play onto Aki, who is ticking down with the Ignite. Death Sentence is dashed away from by the Spectral Maw, and that means nobody will go down, but that is a couple of summoner spells burned on NiP's main carry. That's the damage from Shanji's Udyr that you were talking about, though, here, Alk, and that forces Jachi to burn the Ghost.
If Shanji had Ghost, I think maybe he kind of goes band for band with Aphelios and starts running at him, but already missing out on a summoner spell, so weren't able to find all that much. It's just the flash from Aki, like you were saying, and does mean that Doinby is forced to recall. Had to burn all of his mana. That is one of the problems with trying to skirmish with Ryze early. He kind of just deletes his mana bar in the process, and without teleport, does mean that anytime Tongyuan has an ability to make a massive lane shove, he will be able to either match on the opposite side of the map or even move a little bit closer to pushing Doinby off of the lane.
Shanji doing a good job at staying alive and gathering XP. Level 3 still up, you know, has a wave and a half here. The question is, can he survive a potential dive? As right now, it is NiP getting the better end of this lane swap just because of the plates that Leave and PP God are able to get with the lowered resistances on that bottom lane turret. Death Sentence goes wide. That is already going to be almost 2 plates. They are unable to barely get that one, but they'll get it soon enough here.
Yeah, whoa. Leave. Throwing that Q, brother. Almost hit me back here in my own home here in the PNW. Bit of a far ways to travel for an Ezreal Q, but already seeing some of the effects, like you were saying, getting the 2 plates for this bottom lane is expected, especially coming out from the lane swap. We'll see what both of these teams decide to do. We've got Dragon spawning in 30, a minute and a half before Grubs, and what I'm kind of looking at here is NiP obviously want to be able to scale. They'll have a really big spike on one item, and it's up to RNG as to whether or not they opt into these fights. They have a lot of game-changing ultimates, but I think the itemization might be a bit of in a wacky spot. And I actually, hopefully we get to check in on this. I don't think we will, just because it's usually something we need in depth for Aphelios, as to what we're getting the maxing for, because I think this might be a game where you forego attack speed on Aphelios and you actually go for the lethality early option, which gives you a lot of upfront damage and maybe allows for them to trade a little bit differently versus Leave and PP God.
Just took a look. Most of the points are in W right now, so he's maxing that first.
No! Why does he have attack speed? He's gonna hit Shanji 1 million times and do 0 damage. It's okay. Maybe, look, Jachi has proven us wrong before. He doesn't have a lethal tempo. He does actually have the fleet footwork, which, while nerfed for range champions, I think still provides a lot of utility, especially with the movement speed. So just worried for him in general. He has a lot of tanky boys to deal with as the game goes on.
Speaking of worried, I think Jashu should be that at this point with the big wave crashing into the top side. You see Aki on the Viego making his way up here as well. Jashu still not level 6 and won't be able to get it on the completion of this wave. Spectrum Ball comes out, lands a stun. But it looks like NiP don't want to go too far in for this dive, knowing that, of course, NiP is on the way. That allows for Milky Way to take the dragon on the other side of the map.
Aki's going to start up these grubs, but with RNG getting pushed in mid, I think it's very easy, actually, for them to maybe contest for this objective. They're just looking for something onto Doinb, get his flash, and they can continue to move over towards these grubs. They don't even have to get the entirety of the camp. They're actually going to pull off of this and try to make a play onto bottom side. They don't have to kill Shanji. All they have to do is just make sure Judgy gets gold.
Yeah, looks like instead of trying to flip the grubs in one way or the other, they're going to give that up, try to find plays on the other side. You burn Doinb's flash. You also are going to be able to take camps away on the bottom side, but now Xiaoshu might be in trouble once again as Aki, once again, making his way up here.
Look at this, making plays on opposite sides of the map. Doinb can catch this wave and even go bottom lane if they go a little too deep. That's what I think I love as part of this Rise pick. We've been seeing Doinb really maximize the ability to play the lane and play the map with game-changing ultimates like Pantheon from Game 2. But, oh, we're getting the Rise ultimate. They're making the dive on the top side. It's a single plate left here.
There's no minions, though. It's going to tank tower aggro pretty immediately. There comes the Heartbreaker, and that's first blood here for Leave. Really nicely done by NiP. They send Doinb up, and they get the first kill.
And they'll even get the first turret here. I mean, they've got 3 grubs. I don't think RNG can move this Udyr out of the wave, so NiP continue with more dominant early games. Now Leave has a massive advantage over his opponents. He's going to be able to recall and get most parts of a Trinity Force already online. 1,000 gold over his opponent in Judgy. We've got no objectives for the next 3 minutes, so Trinity Force spike, I think, for Leave is going to be coming a lot sooner than his opponents expect.
Yeah, it was RNG who initiated a lane swap, and they're the ones well worse off because of it. Leave and PP God have been able to get so many plates. They got 2 on the bottom side, then all 5 up top lane, including that first turret. So
it's 8 minutes, man.
Very, very well. Yeah, and he still has way more time to get more.
Potentially going for, I mean, they can get 3 here. Yeah, it'll be Judgy with level 6, NiP as well coming down towards the bottom lane, but I kind of want to see RNG play towards sides, get this Ezreal. It's hard to deal with him. Ezreal is notoriously a very slippery champion, but you need to be able to force something like a cleanse, maybe his flash early on, because otherwise you're just allowing this team to scale up. And what we wanted to see from RNG is play for some of these early objectives, be able to make flips with this Azir and Thresh, and that has not come to fruition for this team so far, 8.5 minutes in.
The only really thing that they've gotten so far is that first dragon, which does help a little bit in terms of trying to deny things like an early soul for NiP, but all things considered, they'd rather have
there we go.
Some kills. Which, speaking of, they might try to find one here. On to PP God. PP God a little bit too far forward here. The Emperor's Divide not actually doing the deed, as NiP is the one to secure the kill, but it is still a kill nonetheless, and RNG will be happy enough with that.
It's unfortunate, but does buy a little bit of time again. There's not much on the map. What I would want to see here from RNG is taking control of bottom side vision. You already see that NiP is hovering towards his AD carry, but had already gotten some vision down near the mid lane. Milky Way is going to be clearing down after this. He will get spotted on a ward, and while Viego is here and spotted, don't know how much NiP's jungler is going to be able to get done in this situation. Xiaoshu has to be careful because with this turret down behind him, he always has to be worried of potentially Doinb being able to walk on over if they lose mid-control.
Looks like he's not doing too well right now. Just 28 CS, definitely got the bad end of things in terms of the lane swap. So Shanji's having his way up in the top side right now. Looks like Milky Way there to at least alleviate some of that pressure, but right now it is all ninjas in pajamas here in game number 3. They're up almost 2,000 gold at the 10-minute mark.
Milky Way, this might be another game where you have to abandon some of your camps. Last game, it was out of your control. The camps were not abandoned by you. The camps were forcibly conquered by your opponents. This time, however, I think top lane camps might be a bit more difficult to grab. I think you are looking at a full respawn and reset of Gromp and Wolves. That seems like your appetite for the near future.
On a diet a little bit here this game, and maybe the last one as well. As instead of going for the camps, looks like Milky Way just running straight down top lane to try to pull off a bit of a lane gank of sorts. Is spotted out by the control ward though.
Oh no!
And that is bad news for RNG. As Aki also starting up this second spawn of grubs.
Look at Leave, man!
Rather quick. Leave going very far forward. Could be in trouble though, as Judgy has the red and the white guns. Throws out the Moonlight Vigil, heals himself up rather admirably, and with the Ghost Pop, will try to chase down the rest of the NiP bottom lane and gate a little bit of more pressure, but they will be unable to pick up a kill in the 2v2.
Leave was peppering them. The bot lane looked so potent for them to potentially look for a kill. But it's 6 grubs going over to NiP. They're going to start up this dragon now. Tanguin is leaning towards his team. PP got on vision, however.
Ooh. Glacier Prison goes very, very wide here, and here comes Doinby with that Realm Warp, and the Rise ultimate does wonders here for NiP. Jachi not able to finish off the kill on the PP God. That is a 2-0 in favor of NiP as they pick up the full feats of strength.
They thought, hey, maybe we could play for this dragon, but they get immediately collapsed upon. Who needs teleport when you got a Realm Warp that can do just the same thing? NiP, like you said, grab kills, grab themselves feats of strength at 11 minutes. And it's hard to see this game going anywhere but poorly for RNG from this point. As, like, how do you ever get into this spot, man? Like, you can't actually stop NiP from doing anything against this. Like, you had to flash immediately, maybe get under your turret, but you're not getting anything from top side. Tanguin was not able to actually stop them in mid, so well, maybe you could have seen Tanguin swoop in and use the ultimate to stop the Realm Warper in the first place, but I don't know. I think this is a tough game to play. Yeah,
gonna have to try to find some sort of plays and maybe punish some aggression that NiP is throwing out, but that's not even gonna happen here as Leave and PP God dominating so far here in the mid lane. Jachi goes down, and now the mid lane is the next target in terms of picking up some more plays.
The objective for RNG was to get to 2 and 3 items comfortably. I don't know if they're going to be able to get to 2 and 3. I don't even know if they're going to really be able to get to 2 items. It's Collector almost done here for Jachi as Leave almost finds the kill, just barely misses out on some skill shots onto Niket, but items are already being completed here for Ninjas and Pajamas. Trinity Force is done. The Muramanas are getting stacked at this point. Doinby's already finished his Rod of Ages and is getting stacks at 13 minutes. It kind of puts you on that timer immediately, and you're not able to secure any of the grubs. Only 1 dragon to your name. It feels like RNG are just having to pick up scraps here as NiP, like we said from game 2, leading them around the map and what they can do.
And Milky Way still getting bullied in his own jungle seemingly. Has the heart steal, but that's about it. Not doing enough damage definitely as a Sejuani against Aki, but maybe with the rest of his team he can. Throws out that Glacial Prison, followed up by the Death Sentence. Aki's able to dash away for now, but the Moonlight Vigil will eventually take him down as RNG pick up a shutdown onto their AD carry. Is Jachi picking up 450 gold, and the blue buff finally going their way.
All right, there's the NiP mid-game death. Aki gets picked out yet again. They try to make an invade. He gets caught, and it will slow down NiP's ability to actually terrorize the rest of the map. But honestly, at this point, what we're looking from RNG is how can they stabilize. Xiaoshu, despite the early game deficit, is slowly starting to pick it back up, and maybe with a visit from Milky Way.
Oh, nice flash to match Shanji here. Lands stun as well. Shanji could be in some trouble, but does have a lot of movement speed. Finally, will get jumped on top of and taken down by Milky Way.
Tangyuan, run!
In. That is 2 members. Really nice job by Tangyuan, though, to use that Emperor's Divide to force the rest of NiP away, but will still be in big danger here as this turret is now under threat. The Ket will join him, and looks like the Azir will live.
And in that small passage of time, RNG have been able to slow down the game. They find the pick onto Aki. Then Shanji gets picked out with Milky Way and Xiaoshu. They try to make a play on the bottom side. Doesn't end up working. It's going to turn into the flash from Milky Way and the TP from Tangyuan. But I think when you're this far behind right now, it's as good as it's going to get for your team. And that's what we want to see if RNG want any chance of being able to come back in this game and in this series. We've got Herald spawning in a minute's time, Dragon in 3, but I just look at inventories right now and it doesn't get much better for RNG. So are they going to try to attempt to continue split pushing, get their items, focus on grabbing gold, or do they really want to try to leverage some of the strong team fighting they can have? I think it's a bit difficult when you're missing some key ultimates like Tangyuan's ult.
Yeah, you see Tangyuan actually the one to match Shanji right now in the side lane, because Xiaoshu right now completely outmatched by the Udyr in this situation. So looks like for now it's going to just be getting closer to that 2-item spike that you talked about. Aki spotted out by Xiaoshu in the enemy jungle as Jachi uses a little bit of his HP to try to push Leave and PP God away from this mid lane tier 1. It'll eventually fall, but Jachi is holding on to that for his dear life.
For a team that's had 6 scrubs, this mid-tier one's been up for quite a bit.
That's
So
true.
respect to Jachi and Niket, the rest of RNG, for being able to hold this. This feels like, hey, don't be saying thank you, Shanji, for all your work on this top tier 2. Me and Aki will be taking this. So thank you for all you did with our 6 scrubs.
And will get taken down finally in conjunction with that mid lane tier 1. So suddenly the gold jumping up in favor of NiP. 3.5, almost 4,000 now is the deficit.
They're going to start up this Herald as well. So 6 scrubs plus Herald, I think, is almost a death sentence in its entirety by itself for RNG. Is they are just barely getting items. And for Milky Way, starting up on this Heartsteel is great. I don't think we're getting very many stacks this game. You know, there's
there's
2
so much
melees on
CC.
the enemy teams, and unless Leave is going to just be gifting you a free Heartsteel proc, I think it's a bit tough. Let's see if they can make this play on the bottom side. Joshi is on his way. Niket and Milky Way are in position.
And look at Doinby though. He has that ultimate available and will be able to join the fray if Shanji goes under threat. And I think RNG
It's
might have
time to
figured
run,
that one
boys.
out a little bit too late. That sentence does connect. They're going to try to burst Shanji down, but he's a very tanky Udyr. Jachi will pick up the kill. And it looks like that will be all she wrote here for this play. RNG able to escape successfully. And it looks like Doinby actually did not have that Realm Warp available, so would not have been a play regardless.
Hey, look, RNG are making good, bro. This is exactly the kind of some of the sentiments that we had for RNG was their ability to play the map, right? Was, hey, we're gonna pull you to a side lane. We're gonna have Xiaoshu, who is slowly getting back into this game, and they've started to claw back some of the gold deficit, despite some of the advantages we're seeing for Ninjas in Pajamas. Some of the plays are just not working, and I think RNG are doing a really good job of being able to stall out a game that, for all intents and purposes, we've been pretty doomer about with how things have been going.
You talked about how 2 3-item power spikes are going to be what RNG need. The only problem is if the gold lead is too high, they could be at 2 items while NiP is at 3, and then it doesn't matter how strong your champions are at that spike, you're just going to be outmatched. So finding plays like this to try to limit that deficit as much as possible until you get later on into the game. And those are the kind of plays that we want to see more out of from RNG, not just here in this series, but as we look forward to Split 2. Bad time for the camera to go.
Thank you, PP God. No notes for my go. Thank you, brother. You're doing great. Keep it up.
That's
Oh,
actually
we're going for it. We went from one finger in one. We went for the dual. We're dual wielding.
So you guys actually don't know this. This is what me and Hawk do off camera while we're casting the game as well.
No, actually, I just have my standing desk, and I usually am like sitting, like I'm doing. It's very fun, but I'm usually not dual wielding like that. That's new tech.
That's
new tech.
Yeah, these League players innovating on and off the Rift, seemingly. It's yeah, pretty unfortunate timing. We don't know exactly what the pause is. We'll update you guys all as soon as we do have any further clarification. I will say it looked like, on the spectator client at least, that Doinby had the ulti, although maybe I'm just completely mistaken on that. I don't know.
So
what
he
exactly.
had like 15 seconds while he was walking to lane,
Okay,
and then
so the circle was almost full, but then
yeah, the circle was almost full, and then after the play was already done, it still had like 4 seconds. It had like the individual timer, so didn't have it. Doesn't even really matter. Even if they had just teleported in, it would have only just been him and Karma. But I think RNG, if they lose this game, I think that some of the great things that they have done throughout the series will get swept up in the fact that NiP smashed you guys. You got 3-0'd. I'm not watching the VOD. You know, like, why do I need to watch NiP versus RNG? I just want to watch the big ticket games. But for fans of specifically RNG, such a big legacy org especially, I think that in recent years it's been a bit tough to represent the org with not very many international appearances, some domestic showings that have not been very pretty. This roster is showing a lot of promise. We have a young AD carry that is kind of coming up through the ranks and giving us a player, maybe a franchise player in the future. And Tongyun, who's currently the franchise player, is starting to improve after a year that was not so great. So I think against all odds, RNG are at least giving us something to talk about, and I'm really excited for this team, regardless of the results of this split, going into Split 2.
Yeah, it's a lot of, newer players as well to the space as a whole. A lot of younger players that can continue to develop as we watch this team continue to grow throughout the year. You think even of Milky Way, who was, you know, one of the newer faces to the league last season when he was on loan by RNG to FPX, and now in his sophomore season looking to continue his development here. And I really think this bot lane here could be special for Royal, especially with the addition of Niket. I really liked some of the decisiveness that he had in game number 1, specifically on the Rel. We haven't seen too much of that since then, but I think overall this is a very strong core that RNG have put together around their lone remaining player from last season in Tang Yuan.
Yeah. And for NiP, we've been talking about it, I think, all series long, the fact that a roster that, with the inclusion of Doinb, has really shot up in the rankings super fast, out of nowhere. And we're back into the game. Thank you, folks. Thank you to everybody on production for being able to get us through that pause very quickly. No chrono breaks for now, fingers crossed, as we come back and Xiaoshu's able to take a top tier 1. Maybe we'll see what this bot lane play has in store, as Aki is still waiting with a Rift Herald, and they're moving on over.
Ooh, the Rune Prison lands here onto Josh. He's already down to 40% HP, right into the arms of Aki, who is able to lock him down in Doinb with the Realm Warp. Picks up the kill onto the RNG 80 carry. Joshi did all that he could to try to escape, but could not get away from NiP. They get the 1 kill. They also proc this Rift Herald and send it right down to Crash in to pick up their 4th tower.
6 grubs, the Rift Herald. They've got another wave coming on this bottom lane. Aki can just do the dragon this entire time. I'm glad we got all the RNG stuff during the break, because that gave us time to set them up to come right back to live, and they're just getting smashed on the map. Doinb there kind of weaves the spell flux and the overload right in between the lines and is able to find Jachi, gets the flash as well from this Aphelios. So as all of the goodwill we've been spreading for Royal Never Give Up, it's still tough. You look at those gold leads, and I mean, leave almost 2,000 up. He's going to be finishing Muramana here. That's going to be a massive spike for the Ninjas in Pajamas.
Yeah, it's all about trying to slow things down for RNG, but things got accelerated a little bit off of that play, as we're once again back to a gold lead of over 4K for NiP. And 2 items now finally have been unlocked here for Tang Yuan, who has been farming very nicely with that Riftmaker and Leandry, so we'll be doing a lot of burn damage. Jachi getting closer and closer to that as well. But we're starting to get to a point here, Alk, where despite the 2 item spikes for the carries of RNG, the wallet diff might be a little bit too much on the other side.
Yeah. And even look at the items, man. Like, Seraph's completed for Doinb. At least it's not Fimbulwinter, okay? I'll take it.
I know. I was kind of expecting that, not gonna lie.
I'm excited about that one. Aki is playing around Vision in a really creative way, using the Otacon walls that are located in bottom lane. But we're getting those similar kind of lane allocations. Shanji pushing in on the top wave, has teleport, as does Xiaoshu. And maybe a fight here around the dragon. They are pushing RNG out of this area. Whoa!
Both the Q and the Death Sentence go wide here. Tang Yuan using the Emperor's Divide to try to escape, but a nice buffer from Aki. Escapes the crowd control itself. Niket on the menu here for NiP, and will get taken down by the Mystic Shot of Leave.
I just don't even think it matters at this point. They'll take Otacon. Shanji pushed him all the way up to his inhibitor turret and is like, yeah, I may have 6 grubs, but I think we're just going to be playing for mid. Oh, I think Joshi's in a big trouble here. He has Ghost, but no Flash. And he's trying to push on this mid wave. We're going to get TP from Tang Yuan to protect his AD carry.
Yeah, Shanji doesn't have enough damage at this point just yet, and with Tang Yuan joining, looks like Shanji just here to try to catch this wave and prevent this tower from going down. She should be able to do so successfully, while the Otacon is secured on the other side. So that is revives for all of NiP. They'll head back to base and look to really break open the base this time.
Next 2.5 minutes, so dangerous, and I want to see how NiP close this out. We have some time here, Grapes. You said that Shanji doesn't have enough damage, but I see there is a completed item in the enemy top laner who is a tank, and that just means that, similar to Aurelia, he has hit his item spike. This guy will run you down. Base damage on Udyr is insane. As someone who has gotten ran down by Udyr, and I'm sure many of the people in chat can attest to this, as an 80 carry player, that guy could have boots and like garage sale items, and he probably still 1v1s you. Tiger Stance is a hell of a drug.
Udyr base damage is strong, I'll give you that. And with the Unending Spare in his inventory, very shortly it'll add to that as well. See some counter jungling going on here just some taking of the blue buff, I should say, for NiP. They were on red side the last 2 games. I'm getting myself confused. They're up almost 6,000 gold. 20 minutes into this game, and they continue to do so much on the siege with all 6 of the grubs in their hands. RNG are going to have to make a move sooner rather than later if they don't want their base to just crumble before their eyes, even before the Baron spawns.
All of their engage is predicated on landing a Sejuani ult or a Thresh Hook from NiP. When that's gone, it's tough, and it's not even like it's dedicated, right? Like it's not a point and click. It's, in my eyes, a bit of fake CC, because typically when people see Sejuani, it's like, oh, I'll just Sejuani ult the backline. How often does Sejuani actually find the space to get that? Not often. And there's still the Otacon respawns here for NiP, so any pick that RNG get is merely just going to delay the Ninjas in Pajamas by about 15 seconds. Cool. Great job.
Shanji just ignoring Xiaoshu's damage as well and just hitting the tower for as long as possible. We'll have to try to run away from Xiaoqi now, who has arrived at the bottom lane. But
oh, we're
realm
warping!
The rest of NiP in with the realm warp. That's the true shot barrage, taking down Xiaoqi. Xiaoshu will go down as well. It's a double kill for Leave, as they might even be looking for more here on this play. Aki with the stolen vehicle.
Oh my god, Leave!
Not able to find it. Leave still weaving in autos and the mystic shots. He goes way far forward and is able to pick up the kill onto NiP before respawning back in his own fountain. That is 3 kills for NiP. They're also going to get the bot lane inhibitor, and they are running away here with this game number 3.
Unofficial triple kill there for Leaf. He plays with 0 fear in his heart. He's like, hey, I'm playing Ezreal. I've got a free revive. Let me shift forward, brother. They pushed off onto the top wave, and after that, great use of the Realm Warp. That's so funny. Leave Arcane shifts backwards. He lands Q, then ult, lands another Q, and he has another shift already ready. And I love how aggressively he plays this, putting pressure onto Tangyuan so he cannot defend his turret. And it is one last, oh, it's an auto with red buff that takes down NiP there. So great stuff from the NiP AD carry, and this is, I think, the level that we should be expecting for NiP to be playing for most of the rest of the season. And, I mean, you have Doinby, who seems like he's on form, and Leaf, who's playing like this. I think this is why I feel so confident to say they feel like a top 4 team here in the region.
And they're looking poised to be one of the top 4 seeds in the LPL. With a win here, would put them to the top of Group D and give themselves a spot in double elimination, as they are looking very dominant right now. Picking up that Mountain Soul point, almost a 10,000 gold lead. They don't even have the Baron just yet. You assume that'll be their next topic, or their next target on cooldown, as they go for some more resets right now. Leave at 3 items right now, 7, 0, and 1 on the Ezreal.
And upgraded boots, upgraded Lucidity boots as well. An insane amount of stats already given to him, and now he gets bonus movement speed. Like, just the game does not get easier here, as Doinby on a side lane. Milky Way, I don't think you actually deal damage to this guy. I think you walk up, you proc your Heartsteel, and you skedaddle. You're not doing any. What are we waiting for? There's no Otacon to play. Maybe they're going to try and sneak a Baron.
Yeah.
It's tough, but, I mean, how does he get into the pit here? There's so much vision, and even this Baron actually opens up the pit a little bit, maybe changes some of the vision lines. So he'll move past this minion wave. He knows that his vision's getting cleared out as well. Spot lane's walking up. Tangyuan is still pushing on a side lane. Almost going to be level 16 on Azir.
Yeah,
maybe they can turn here.
It's a solo mission here for Milky Way. He's going to try to steal this one away, it seems like.
Oh my god, leave!
Leave shifts over the pit to just push the RNG jungler away. He is not able to get into the pit, and it will be secured easily by Ninjas in Pajamas, and they can try to win this fight on the other side as well. NiP on the run will land the death sentence in on the Shanji. Aki flashing over the wall, trying to find the Aphelios, and will get the kill, and the reset city will begin. It's going to be a clean ace in for NiP. They get 4 kills with just Tangyuan, who was not even at the fight, the last remaining survivor here for Royal.
Leaf has just been shifting forward. He does not care about what the opponents, he fears them not. As teleports through mid, but we've got a top wave to end on. We've got Baron and 6 grubs. NiP are going to 3-0 RNG here, barring a miracle from Tangyuan.
He doesn't have a kill just yet. Going back to base to try to defend. It looks like it'll just be the inhibitor that NiP want. They're going to play this out the smart way, at least for now, as a wave is crashing mid. They should be able to pick up all 3 of these inhibs without too much trouble. They're actually, so far, taking the tower with just the Void Mites helping them out here. As they take down the inhibitor tower, all 3 inhibs will be down, as this
They can keep
is
going.
maybe one of the most dominant performances we've seen here by NiP so far in their early run here in the LPL. Next tower's now the target, as it looks like they want to try to end the game here on this Baron buff push. Leave dashing forward once again with the Arcane Shift, forcing Joshi down to 500 HP, as RNG currently are fish in a barrel to the might of Leave with these Mystic shots.
And they've got another minion wave. They got these 6 grubs. The ultimate does not land from Milky Way.
Joshi trying to land the stun onto Doinb, but not enough damage here for the Rise. Redemption comes out. Everybody on NiP is still well and healthy, but
Oh,
Joshi comes
wait a
through
minute,
with the
wait,
Moonlight
wait.
Vigil. He
Tangyuan?
shuts down Naki right now, but Leave is still fully healthy. Tangyuan unable to find anything with the Emperor's Divide, and that should eventually be the game. Doinb doesn't fall. NiP standing strong in the base of Royal Never Give Up. They will go undefeated here in the group stage and have made a statement here early in the LPL season.
Joshi falls as the last member. NiP, so dominant, not to be unexpected with where we thought this game was going to be, but I think with the quality of some of these games, specifically Game 1 and some parts of Game 3, RNG can hopefully look towards Split 2 and maybe a surprise look in playoffs here, as we're still waiting for the results of IG versus FPX later on this week. Tough loss, especially in some of those games, but NiP head and shoulders look like the best team in this group, and I'm wondering what fan expectations are for this team, because this is, I think, the group where some people might put an asterisk and be like, cool, you got out against a bunch of teams that I don't think were willing to push you. And same could be said to that Group C group with BLG and TT. Some people might be saying, hey, look, got LNG in that team. I don't know if I really believe the results.
That was a tough season for LNG, I'll say that. But it's a good finish here for Ninjas in Pajamas. They go undefeated, and as you mentioned, the question is, how do they fare against some of the other top teams in the LPL? We've seen them against the Invictus Gamings of the world. What do they look like as this group of 5 with Doinb against teams like BLG? Anyone's Legends has had a really good start to the season. Top Esports as well in that group as well, in addition to that.
Yeah.
But they'll get to avoid some of the top teams early on. Anyone's Legends and JDG both winning their groups, so they'll get a start in the upper bracket, as will NiP.
So it's so funny because you look at all of the quote-unquote #1 seeds right now. The best record that can be achieved is BLG with a 9-0. So that matchup tomorrow versus TT is going to be very fun. And NiP will be ending their game with 9-1 game score, which is better than JDG, who ended 9-4, and just better than AL, who ended 9-2, thanks to their surprise loss in one of the games to Team WE. They just decided to do charity work for a game, and even had a Baron that got stolen from Set. Thank you, Flandra.
Yeah, it's all right. You know, the most important thing is that you end 3-0. You get that spot in the upper bracket. You get the rights to double elimination. And we'll see. There's still one of those spots left to be determined, as you mentioned, tomorrow, when it will be BLG taking on Thunder Talk. And we got a couple more series after that to wrap things up. Top Esports still has to play to make sure that they have a chance here in the group. And on the other side, we'll have the finishing up of Group D with IG taking on FPX.
I think that's the really important part. We kind of touched on it throughout the series a little bit, but this does not immediately lock out any of our last 3 teams. For FPX, if they find a surprise victory up against IG, an unexpected upset, there's a potential that any one of these bottom 3 teams could make it, and kind of means that IG need to lock in a little bit. I still expect that series to be in their favor, but Invictus has not been as impenetrable as we thought.
Yeah, and if we have some time to actually go through the before we get to the highlights, actually look at the standings of the groups real quick. If we can just do some napkin math about what the stakes are here for the rest of this group, it would be very interesting. The biggest thing, of course, is if IG just take care of business against FPX, they will be the second team advancing now with a
Yep.
2-1 record compared to RNG's 1-2. It does the weird stuff happens when FPX actually wins this series somehow against IG. That leaves 3 teams in that circle of 1 and 2, with NiP being at the 3-0, and then it comes down to game score to be the tiebreaker.
Yeah, like I'll let those guys do it when they do. I'm trying to see who was on that show. One of the last shows, second to last show of the season, at least for Split 1. It's gonna be Rude Dude and Yanni. Good. I can let those guys do stupid napkin math and prevent myself from having to do it on broadcast. You know, it's double it and give it to the next guy, basically. I'll let them handle that one.
The one thing I have determined is that if FPX 3-0 IG, they will actually make playoffs. I think that's their only path.
Beautiful.
Any
I
other
love
path
that.
is
I
just
love
tough.
that FPX can go from being the worst team in the group to making the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's and off the back of IG losing, it would just be too sweet.
That'd be
it would
cinema,
just
for
be.
sure.
I would be very sad for Rookie, but he made this choice when he decided to sign up with another team with the Shy. So we have our group standings here, updated
finalized.
for some of the results here in Group D as well. NiP, like we said, were already locked, but with game differential and how close some of the series scores are down here, it is very likely that any 3 of these teams could potentially make it. Just we're looking at IG to kind of clean house on Saturday.
I'll have Yanni and Rude like confirm this, but I'm pretty sure actually RNG is out. I don't think there's a way that they get in based off of game score, because if it's a
They're 4 and
3-0
7
for
now, yeah.
if it's 3-0 for FPX, that puts them at -2 and IG at -3. If FPX win 3-1, that puts IG at -2, and they would still get the tiebreaker, I believe, over both of them. So,
Damn.
it's
Sorry,
tough,
RNG.
unfortunately.
It's been great. It's been tough, but look, we said it at the beginning of broadcast. I think it's been a narrative that we've kind of kept through for this team. These are one of our split 2 teams. Not every squad can make it into playoffs. It's top 8, and I mean, for what it's worth, I think they showed some really good games for what it's worth, and not only this series, but I think their FPX series. IG was a little bit tougher, but they were even able to kind of play some spoiler there. I'm wondering what this team is going to look like with a bit more time and just, you know, the eventuality of things.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of promising pieces. That last series is definitely going to leave a sour taste in the mouth of RNG fans. However, you got to think back to how they looked against FPX, took a game off of IG. Like, there's all these different things that you can look at as being highlights here for this RNG roster. Specifically the bot lane, I think. I think Niket coming out here, having a really solid Game 1 performance at the very least, and looking like a very decisive playmaker in all 3 games here for Royal, even though it didn't end up the game results with wins on the board for them. I think that the bot lane specifically, as well as, you know, some of the other players for RNG are really good really good talking points for them that we did not necessarily expect coming into the season.
Yep. And for NiP, I just want to see this team in playoffs. I want to see these guys play up against some of our better teams, to be fair. I know I was kind of giving the caveat for RNG, but now we need to see on the cutting room floor for NiP what it's like when you're playing against the top dogs, because as much as I want this team to be a top 4 contender, we send one team to first stand, and you still have BLG. I want to see BLG play against some of our other top teams, because again, I think their group is incredibly easy. We get to see who our player of the game is. It's Leave. We didn't touch on it much, but I don't think there was much that needed to be said. This guy was 40% of his team's damage. On average, he's 30%, so doing great for yourself. And 10-0-5 on the Ezreal. A contested pick between him and Jachid.
Bringing those numbers up for sure. Leave having a really, really good start to the LPL season. You know, we talk about this OMG core a lot of the time. We talk about Doinby being this new addition, but Leave, also a newer addition to this NiP team, having a really, really good start. So I think overall, lots to look forward to for NiP, and now we get to see them against the rest of the top tier in the LPL.
Yeah, I'm just ready for playoffs, man. I want us to obviously finish out all of our groups. I want to see that BLG TT game tomorrow, because that determines first seed, and if there's an upset, TT have been on fire. Their team fighting has been looking good, but I want us to get to the point in playoffs where double elim, best of 5s, the cream of the crop, and get ready for sending our first teams for international.
Well, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the split, but we still got a couple of group stage games left to go to round out the week. Make sure you're right back here tomorrow for BLG versus Thunder Talk before, of course, we head into the weekend. Before we head out for the day, I want to give a big shout out to our elite coffee supporter, Aaron Saporis. Their pledge financial contribution helps level up the broadcast and give back to the cast and crew who strive to give you an English LPL product every single day. Once again, here, final score, NiP 3, RNG 0. On behalf of our producer Kelsey and Alk Battery and everybody else here working on LPL English, my name is Grapes. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for more group stage play.